When innocence was lost in war, have you ever thought about what it means to be a child? It's a time for playing, learning, and feeling safe. It's a time when the biggest worries might be homework or what's for dinner, but for many kids caught in war, that simple feeling of childhood disappears. This is what we mean by innocence lost. It's not just about losing toys or a home. It's about losing a part of yourself that believed the world was mostly good and safe. Throughout history, war has always been brutal, but it's especially cruel to the young. Imagine a little tree just starting to grow. It needs sunlight, good soil, and gentle rain to become strong. But if a harsh storm comes, tearing at its branches and roots, that tree will struggle. It might survive, but it will carry the scars of that storm, growing differently because of it. That's a bit like what happens to children in war. Their minds, like those young trees, are meant to grow freely. Instead, they face things no one, especially a child, ever should. They see violence, hunger, and fear daily. They might be forced to make adult choices or witness unspeakable acts. Here's the thing. When you're young, your brain is like a super absorbent sponge. It soaks up everything around you. In a peaceful place, it soaks up laughter, lessons, and love. But in a war zone, it soaks up alarms, explosions, and loss. These deeply sad experiences change the very way a child sees the world. They might stop trusting people, or they might feel they have to grow up too fast to protect themselves or their families. The light-heartedness of childhood, that belief in magic and possibility, starts to fade, and so, innocence lost means a childhood cut short, a heart forced to carry burdens too heavy for its years. It reminds us that war doesn't just destroy buildings, it leaves invisible wounds on the youngest souls. These children often show incredible bravery, but the marks of what they endured stay with them. They learn strength, but they also carry a deep sadness. It's a quiet reminder of what was taken, and why peace matters so much for every child, everywhere. The village that vanished. Have you ever imagined your neighborhood, your street, your home, just gone, not by a storm or a flood, but by human hands? This is the heartbreaking reality of a vanished village. A terrible act of war where an entire community is wiped off the map on purpose. It's more than just buildings being destroyed. It's the lives, the memories, the stories that lived there. Imagine a small village, maybe nestled by a river, where children played, families gathered for meals, and neighbors knew each other's names. People had their daily routines, their hopes for tomorrow. Then, in the blink of an eye, or over a few brutal hours, soldiers arrive. They destroy everything. They kill the people, burn the houses, and flatten the land until it looks like nothing was ever there. The idea is to erase not just the village, but the memory of it too. It's meant to break the spirit of anyone who remains. Think about a playlist you've carefully created, full of songs that remind you of good times. Then someone comes and deletes the entire thing, and all the individual songs, too. It's not just the music you miss, it's the feelings, the stories tied to each track. In a vanished village, it's like deleting a whole community's song. Its unique history, its very pulse. These places become silent scars on the earth. There's no one left to tell their tale, no houses to show where life once thrived. The grass might grow back, but the ground remembers, and that's why it matters. Even when a place is erased, the pain, the injustice, and the quiet plea for remembrance linger. It teaches us about the deep scars war leaves, not just on people, but on the very land and the human story itself. It's a quiet reminder of how precious every single life, every single memory, truly is. Schools under attack. Imagine your school building, the place you go every day. It's where you meet friends, learn new things, and just feel safe. Now, imagine it completely shattered. Walls broken, books torn, quiet where laughter used to be. It's a tough picture, right? But for kids caught in war zones, this isn't just a bad dream. It's their harsh reality. Attacking schools during a war is a truly terrible thing. It's a war crime that shocks the world. It's not just about destroying buildings. It's about attacking childhood itself. Think about it. School is supposed to be a place where you can just be a kid. It's where you learn, explore, and dream. When bombs fall on schools, they don't just hit bricks. They hit hopes, dreams, and the sense of safety every child deserves. Historically, even in the worst conflicts, there's always been this quiet understanding. Children and the places they learn should be protected. It's a basic human idea. It's like a silent rule. Leave the kids alone. When this rule is broken, it feels like a really dark line has been crossed. It's like someone purposely destroying your favorite place, not to win something, but just to take away joy and comfort. It's a direct hit on a community's foundation. When you take away a school, you don't just take away a classroom. You take away the chance to learn about history, to understand science, to write your own stories. You take away the feeling of having a routine, a future. It's like trying to grow a delicate plant in complete darkness. It struggles to thrive. Education, for young minds, is like the sunshine dot. So when we hear about schools under attack, it's more than just news about a building. It's a story about childhood lost, about the future being held back. It reminds us that protecting children and giving them their right to learn is something deeply important. It's a gentle reminder that our shared humanity means we should always try to keep those lights of learning shining brightly, no matter how tough things get. Hospitals no longer safe. Think about a school nurse's office or the first aid tent at a sports game. These are places everyone agrees are safe zones, right? Places you go when you're hurt, expecting care, not more harm. Hospitals in times of war are meant to be like that, but on a much bigger scale. They are places where doctors and nurses save lives, no matter which side someone is on. For a long time, people have understood this. Even in old wars, there was an unspoken rule. You don't target the wounded. You don't attack healers. This idea became a law, like in the Geneva Conventions. These rules say hospitals and staff must be protected. They are not battlefields, but neutral ground, a bubble of peace and chaos. But here's the thing. Sometimes these rules are broken. Hospitals become targets. Imagine being sick, maybe with a fever or a broken arm, trying to recover in a quiet room. Then, suddenly, your safe place is no longer safe. Conflict sounds outside, or worse, inside. It's like attacking a fire station as firefighters save a home, or hitting an ambulance helping someone. It's not just breaking a rule. It attacks the idea of compassion when people are most vulnerable. When hospitals are attacked, it hurts something much deeper than just the people inside. It tells everyone that even basic human kindness can shatter. It rips away trust. People wonder where they can truly find safety. This makes war's pain heavier. Places meant for hope become symbols of despair, and that's why it matters. When healing itself is harmed, what does that say about us? It's a question that echoes long after the bombs fall. Children forced to fight what is childhood supposed to be. For most of us, it means school, friends, maybe playing games or learning new things. It's a time for growing, for dreaming about who you'll become. But imagine a world where childhood is ripped away, not by a sickness or a family moving, but by war. This is the harsh truth for countless children forced to fight in conflicts around the globe. When we talk about children forced to fight, we mean kids, sometimes as young as 7 or 8, who are made to be soldiers. They are given weapons, taught to hurt others, and sent into battles that adults should be fighting. This isn't about choice. It's about control and pure desperation. For centuries, even in ancient times, armies sometimes used younger people. But in modern warfare, international laws are very clear. Children should never be part of armed conflict. It's a war crime because it steals their future and their innocence in the cruelest way. Think about it like this. Your brain is still developing, right? It's like a complex machine being built, adding new parts and learning functions every day. You're learning how to handle emotions, solve problems, and understand the world. Now, imagine someone forcing that machine, still in its early building stages, to perform a dangerous adult task it's not designed for. It's not just unfair, it's damaging in ways that can never truly heal. These children aren't just missing out on school, they're missing out on being children. They are robbed of safety, love, and the chance to simply exist without fear. And that's why it matters so much. It leaves us with a quiet sadness, doesn't it? A feeling that some things are just universally wrong. Children are meant to be shielded, to be the hope for a better tomorrow. When we see their innocence shattered by war, it reminds us of the profound cost of conflict, and how deeply we must wish for a world where every child can just be a child. The horror of mass graves. Have you ever thought about how we say goodbye to someone we've lost? We usually have ceremonies, a special place, and time to remember them. But what if there was no time for that? No special place? What if many people were killed at once, their lives taken instantly, and then just thrown together? That's what a mass grave is. It's not a peaceful cemetery. It's a place where many bodies are buried together, not with care or respect, but quickly, often in secret, after terrible violence. It's a clear sign that lives were ended brutally. Those who did it tried to erase their memory, to make it seem like these people never even existed. It shows a complete disrespect for human life, trying to silence countless stories. Think about a big group photo. Each person in it is unique and important. If someone tore out hundreds of faces from that photo, crushed them up, and hid them, the whole picture would feel broken and wrong. Each person in a mass grave was like one of those faces, a unique part of their family, their community, their world. Their absence leaves a huge, painful hole. It's like saying their individual lives didn't matter, but every life does matter. Every person has a story worth remembering. Finding these graves later is a heavy moment. It reminds us of a dark past, of choices that led to extreme cruelty. But here's what I found. It also gives us a chance to give those lost individuals some dignity back. We can remember them not as forgotten numbers, but as people who lived, laughed, and loved. This is a powerful lesson. We must always stand up for kindness, for respect, and for the right of every person to be seen and valued. Even when someone tries to erase a life, its echo can still be heard, asking us to remember. Families torn apart forever. Have you ever thought about what makes a family? It's more than just people in a house. It's like an invisible thread connecting you, a feeling of belonging, a safe place. But imagine that thread snapping. That's what war does. It rips apart families, often without warning, leaving huge, painful holes. These aren't minor breaks. They are deep cuts that change everything forever. Throughout history, this has been a cruel reality of war. Soldiers leave, never returning. Homes are destroyed, forcing parents and children to flee, often in different directions. One day, you're laughing at dinner. The next, you might be alone, searching for faces you might never see again. It's not just physical separation. It's losing shared memories, future moments, and the comfort family brings. Think of a strong woven rope. Each strand makes it sturdy. Now, imagine cutting several main strands. The rope loses its strength. It can never be always broken threads, always missing parts. This isn't temporary sadness. This is a forever kind of loss, a wound that stays. A child grows up without a parent's hand. A parent searches for a child's smile for decades. Siblings lose their closest friends. These are real people, heartbreaks echoing through their lives. The scars of these separations run incredibly deep. This helps you understand why war's damage goes beyond the battlefield. It's a powerful reminder of how precious our connections are. And that's why it matters to understand war's true cost, not just in battles, but in the aching corners of human hearts. Promises broken in battle. Have you ever felt the sting of a broken promise? That hollow feeling when someone tells you they'll do something, or not do something, and then they don't. It hurts, right? In everyday life, a broken promise can shatter trust between friends or family. It makes you question everything. But imagine that feeling, amplified 1,000 times, in the chaos and fear of war. Here's the thing, even in battle, where lives are on the edge, there are unwritten rules, and sometimes actual, solemn agreements. These aren't just polite suggestions. They are crucial pledges meant to limit suffering, or ensure safety for those who can no longer fight. Think about it. Sometimes, warring sides might agree to a temporary ceasefire to collect their wounded, giving medics a chance to help without being targeted. Or an enemy unit might lay down their weapons, believing they will be treated as prisoners, kept safe, not harmed. They trust in a basic human code. These aren't small promises. They represent a kind of fragile human agreement, even amidst the most inhuman conditions imaginable. When these promises are shattered, it's not just a betrayal of words. It's a profound betrayal of humanity itself, a raw ripping apart of what little decency remains. It's like playing a game, say a basketball game, and one team agrees to certain rules, like not fouling intentionally, but then they purposely trip an opponent and laugh about it. It ruins the spirit of the game, and it makes you question if you can ever truly trust them again. Historically, people have tried to set boundaries for war for thousands of years. It's a way of saying, even in this terrible fight, we won't stoop to absolutely anything. When a soldier, or an entire army, breaks these deeply understood promises, like executing prisoners who surrendered peacefully, or attacking medical staff wearing clear symbols of neutrality, it's a war crime. It's a choice to abandon any shred of decency, to ignore the basic plea for mercy or safety. And that's why it matters so much. When trust is destroyed in such a brutal way, it doesn't just hurt the people directly involved, shattering their lives. It leaves deep, lasting scars on the idea of humanity itself, making the world feel colder, harder, and less safe for everyone. It dims our hope for a better way. Food used as a weapon. Have you ever stopped to think about how much we depend on food? It's not just about feeling full. It's about energy, warmth, and even comfort. But what if the very thing meant to sustain life was twisted into something used to destroy it? This is the dark truth behind using food as a weapon. It's not about throwing a loaf of bread. It's about taking it away. Imagine a place where people are purposefully starved. Armies might cut off food supplies to an enemy city or region. They do this to make people weak, to make them give up, or simply to make them suffer. It's a way of fighting that attacks the body's most basic need. This isn't a new idea. For thousands of years, in sieges on castles or during long wars, people have tried to make their enemies surrender by cutting off their food and water. It's a cruel tactic that slowly crushes the spirit. The idea is simple, but its impact is devastating. Without food, people lose strength, get sick, and eventually die. It doesn't use bombs or bullets, but it's just as deadly. Often more so, because it's a slow, agonizing process. Think about how you feel if you miss just one meal. You might get a headache, feel grumpy, or find it hard to concentrate on your homework. Now, imagine that feeling, not for a few hours, but for days, weeks, or even months. Imagine your body running on empty, always hungry, always weak. You couldn't run, you couldn't play, you couldn't even think clearly. That's what it's like when food becomes a weapon. It's a quiet suffering that gnaws at people, taking away their hope and their ability to fight back, or even just to live. But when food, something meant for life and sharing, is used to bring about death and despair, it speaks to a deep, terrible emptiness. It reminds us that war isn't just about battles. It's about the deliberate breaking of human spirit and the denial of what every person needs to simply exist. The art of a culture destroyed. How does war truly hurt us? Beyond the visible wounds, beyond lost homes and lost lives, what else can be taken that is just as painful? Here's the thing. Sometimes, war isn't just about fighting soldiers. It's about trying to erase a people's very soul. This happens when their art, their books, their ancient buildings are deliberately destroyed. It's like trying to wipe away who they are. Deep down, don't think about why someone would do this. Sometimes, it's to make people feel scared, to make them think their past means nothing. Other times, it's pure anger, wanting to tear down everything that reminds them of the enemy. But here's what I found. Art isn't just paint on a canvas, or stones stacked high. It's a story, it's a memory, it's what people loved, believed in, and worked hard to create for hundreds, even thousands, of years. When a statue falls, when a library burns, or an old temple crumbles, it's not just a thing that's gone. It's a piece of the art of a culture destroyed. Have you ever thought about what makes a place feel like home? It's not just the buildings or the streets, is it? It's also the stories, the songs, the old pictures, the way things look and feel, the art that tells us who we are and where we came from. But sometimes, in war, the fighting isn't just against people, it's against the very soul of a place, against its culture. When we talk about war crimes, we often think of violence against individuals, and that is awful. But there's another kind of terrible loss, the planned destruction of art, ancient buildings, libraries, and historic sites. This isn't accidental damage. It's a deliberate attempt to erase a people's history, their identity. It's like someone saying, your past doesn't matter, your stories don't matter, you don't matter. Think about it this way. Imagine if every drawing you ever made, every story you wrote, all the songs you love, just disappeared overnight. How would that feel? Like a part of you was gone, right? Now imagine that on a much bigger scale, for a whole community, for a whole nation. When ancient statues are shattered, when priceless paintings are burned, or when libraries full of old knowledge are turned to ash, it's not just a physical thing that's lost. It's generations of human thought, creativity, and memory. It's a piece of our shared human journey ripped away. This act of destroying culture is a war crime because it tries to leave a group of people without their roots, without their connections to the past. It's an attack that lasts long after the fighting stops, leaving deep, invisible scars. Even if the physical art is gone, the memory and the deep sadness it leaves behind can remind us what we value, and it shows us why protecting these precious parts of human culture is so important for everyone. for all time. Water wells poisoned on purpose. Imagine this: you're thirsty after a long day, and you reach for a glass of water, something you completely trust. But what if that water, the very thing meant to sustain life, was intentionally made deadly? Here's the thing about war crimes. Some acts go beyond the fighting on a battlefield. Some attacks strike at the very heart of what makes life possible. Poisoning water wells, on purpose, is one of the oldest and most cruel examples. For thousands of years, people have known that water means survival. Towns, villages, even whole civilizations grew up around water sources. It's not just for drinking, it's for cooking, for cleaning, for growing food. So, to poison a well isn't just to deny water in that moment. It's to tell an entire community that they cannot live there, that their future has been taken away. It's an act of war against innocence, against anyone, even children, who might need a drink. Think about it like this. It's as if someone not only took your lunch but purposefully spoiled all the food in your fridge, just so you couldn't eat for days, maybe weeks. It's a deliberate attack on your ability to simply exist. This act isn't about winning a fair fight. It's about creating desperation, forcing people to abandon their homes or face slow suffering. It hits at the most basic human need, taking away hope. It leaves a scar that lasts long after any battle ends. The water, which should be pure and life-giving, becomes a source of fear and death. And that's why it matters. It reminds us that even in war, there are lines, there are things that should never, ever be crossed. Because when the water itself becomes a weapon, it shows a disregard for life that is truly heartbreaking. Civilian ships sunk without warning. Have you ever been on a boat? Maybe just on a ferry? You probably felt safe, right? What if that feeling of safety was suddenly ripped away? This is about something truly terrible in war. Attacking ships carrying regular people, not soldiers, without any warning. Don't think about it. A warship fights other warships, but a civilian ship, that's a passenger liner, a fishing boat, a cargo ship. These ships carry families, doctors, or everyday goods. They aren't part of the fighting. When these ships are sunk, especially without warning, it's a war crime. It breaks basic rules of warfare that say you don't target people not armed or involved in battle. It's like if a basketball team was on their way to a game, traveling on a school bus, and then, out of nowhere, someone attacked that bus, not for the game, but just to hurt them. That would feel completely wrong, right? Those players aren't soldiers. They're just people trying to get somewhere. They expect to be safe from that kind of attack. The same idea applies to ships. People on a civilian vessel might be heading home, or fleeing danger, or just working. They have no defenses against a submarine or a warship. They're just sailing, living their lives. To sink them without warning, to deny them any chance to escape, takes away their basic right to safety. It causes pure terror. This isn't about winning a battle. It's about breaking spirits and spreading horror. It reminds us how fragile peace can be. Some acts in war aren't about winning, but about deliberately harming the innocent. And when that happens, it leaves a deep scar. It reminds us that even in war, there should always be a line that protects the lives of those who aren't fighting. Unarmed civilians shot down. Have you ever thought about rules, even in tough situations? Like in a game, there are lines you don't cross. But what happens when those lines vanish, especially when lives are at stake? Here's the thing. War is awful, but even then, there are supposed to be rules. One of the most important is, don't harm people who aren't fighting. This is what unarmed civilians shot down means. It's about ordinary people, mothers, fathers, children, who are not soldiers. They carry no weapons and take no part in battle. They might be at home, getting food, or just walking down the street. When they are targeted and killed on purpose, it's a deep wrong. It's not a mistake in battle. It's a choice to harm someone completely defenseless. Think of it like this. Imagine a big argument in the school hallway. Then, someone pushes over a student quietly eating lunch at another table. That student had nothing to do with the fight. They were just minding their own business. That feels incredibly unfair, right? That's a small example of what it feels like when unarmed civilians are shot down. It's a betrayal of basic fairness and protection. This act goes against being a decent human. It doesn't just end a life. It shatters trust and puts fear into a whole community. When this happens, it shows a complete disregard for human life. Empathy seems to vanish, and that's why it matters so much. It reminds us of the terrible cost when we forget our shared humanity, and how important it is to remember every life has value. It leaves a quiet ache, a question whispered. Why? The shame of prisoner abuse. Have you ever thought about what happens when someone loses everything, their freedom, their power, their voice? In times of war, this often happens to soldiers who are captured. We call them prisoners of war, and how they are treated reveals a lot about us. The shame of prisoner abuse is when these people, who can no longer fight back, are treated cruelly. It means they might be starved, beaten, or even made to feel worthless. This isn't just about breaking rules, it's about breaking a person. Here's the thing. For a very long time, people have known that even in the toughest situations, like war, there are certain lines you just don't cross. There's an unwritten understanding that all humans, no matter their uniform or side, deserve a basic level of respect. Once a soldier is captured, they are no longer a threat. They are disarmed, vulnerable. To then cause them harm, physical or emotional, is not an act of bravery or strategy. It's a deep betrayal of what it means to be human. It's a choice to be cruel when kindness, or at least fairness, is still possible. Imagine you're in a school play, and someone forgets their lines on stage. They're stuck, embarrassed, and completely exposed. Would you stand there and laugh? Or would you try to help them, even if you're not in the scene? Most of us would feel a pull to be understanding, right? That feeling, that natural human connection, is what gets lost when prisoners are abused. It shows a complete disregard for another person's suffering. The wounds from such abuse don't just heal with time. They leave deep marks, not just on the body, but on the mind and heart of the person who experienced it. And they leave a stain on the conscience of those who inflicted it. It's a reminder that true strength isn't about power over others, but about the power to choose compassion, even for those we might call our enemies. How we treat the most vulnerable among us shows who we truly are. Doctors and nurses targeted. Have you ever thought about who helps people when they get hurt in a war? It's doctors and nurses. They rush in, risking their lives to care for the injured. But here's the thing. Sometimes, these very healers, along with the hospitals they work in, become targets themselves. And that's why it matters so much. It feels wrong, doesn't it? To attack someone just trying to save a life. For a long time, there's been a simple rule. Even in war, there are some lines you don't cross. Protecting healers is one of the biggest. Think about the Red Cross or Red Crescent symbols. They aren't just badges, but a silent message. Stop. These people and places are here to help, not to fight. It's an unwritten promise, even for enemies, that medical aid is safe. Imagine your local hospital. Now, imagine someone harming a nurse or bombing that hospital while patients are there. It's hard to imagine, because it goes against everything we believe about helping others. It's like if a player got hurt in a game, and instead of letting the medics help, the other team tried to stop or hurt them. That wouldn't be right. It breaks the rules of the game, and even more, the rules of human kindness. When doctors, nurses, or their hospitals are attacked, it's more than just a terrible act. It breaks a deep part of our shared humanity. It shows that even compassion, the act of healing, can be seen as something to destroy. And that's a sad thought. It makes us wonder, if healers aren't safe, what hope is left? It makes us think about the kind of world we want, even when things are at their worst. Homes burned for no reason. Have you ever thought about what your home really means to you? It's more than just a building, right? It's where you feel safe, where your family gathers, where memories are made. It holds your favorite blanket, your old toys, maybe even your secret diary. It's a place of comfort and belonging, a personal world. But here's the problem. In war, sometimes homes are burned down, not because of a battle, but just to cause pain. It's not about fighting soldiers or destroying military targets. It's about hurting the people who live there, even civilians. Imagine a soldier, not facing an enemy, but just setting fire to a house, knowing a family lives there, knowing it will be gone forever. This is a war crime, a truly shocking one. Here's the thing. Destroying someone's home on purpose, without any military reason, is an act designed to break spirits. It forces families to leave everything behind, to become refugees with nowhere to go. It makes people feel like they have lost every single thing that tied them to their life. Think about it like this. Imagine someone coming into your room, not to steal anything, but just to rip up all your cherished photos and smash your most treasured possession right in front of you. They don't gain anything useful. They just want to cause you pure, deep sorrow and make you feel powerless. And that's why it matters so much in a war. It goes against a very basic human right, the right to feel safe, to have a place to belong. When a home is burned for no reason, it's not just wood and brick turning to ash. It's a lifetime of memories, a sense of future, and a person's whole world turning to smoke. It leaves scars that last long after the fires are out. It makes us wonder why anyone would choose to inflict such a needless, crushing loss on another human being. It's a reminder of the deepest cruelty humans can show. The lie of safe passage. Have you ever trusted someone completely, believing they would keep you safe, only to find that trust shattered? In times of war, this feeling can become a terrible reality for many. It happens with something called safe passage. Here's the thing, safe passage is a solemn promise. It's an agreement, even between enemies, that certain people, like civilians trying to escape a war zone, or soldiers surrendering, will be allowed to move without being harmed. It's like drawing a clear line on a map and saying, cross here, and you will be protected. You are safe. For a long time, this idea has been a small glimmer of human decency, a basic understanding that even in the chaos of battle, there are limits to how we treat each other. It's about respecting life, even when everything else is falling apart. Imagine you're playing a team sport, like soccer. The game is intense, but there's a rule that if a player gets hurt, everyone stops. The other team doesn't keep playing and score a goal while you're down. That's a kind of unspoken safe passage, a moment where the rules of conflict pause for safety. Now, picture if someone on the other team ignored that rule and kicked the ball into the net anyway. Just because you were vulnerable, you'd feel cheated, right? You'd feel like a fundamental trust was broken. When the promise of safe passage is broken in war, it's much worse than just cheating in a game. It's a deep betrayal. It tells people that no promise for safety can be trusted, that even waving a white flag means nothing. This act doesn't just hurt the body, it hurts the spirit and destroys hope. It makes a bad situation feel truly hopeless, because if you can't trust the promise of safety, what hope is left? This kind of betrayal poisons any chance for peace, or even simple mercy. It reminds us that some actions are not just war crimes, but a cruel attack on our shared human expectation of basic honor and protection, staining the very idea of what it means to be human in conflict. Bombing markets full of people. Have you ever stopped to think about a crowded market? It's a busy, noisy place, full of life. People are buying fresh food, laughing with friends, just living their day. Now, imagine that vibrant, everyday scene suddenly ripped apart. Why would anyone target a place like that? A market isn't a military base, it's not a factory making weapons. It's where families go to get dinner, where neighbors catch up. Here's the thing, war has rules. Even in the middle of fighting, there are lines you should not cross. Attacking places where only civilians gather, like a market, is one of those lines. It's a deliberate choice to hurt ordinary people, to spread terror, and to crush the spirit of a community. It's not about soldiers fighting other soldiers. It's about making everyday life impossible, filling it with fear. Think about your own school during lunchtime, or a big community festival. Everyone is there, enjoying themselves, feeling safe. Imagine if that feeling of normal, busy life was suddenly shattered by a bomb. The shock, the instant terror, the confusion. It's not just the physical hurt, it's the way it breaks trust. It makes you question where you are truly safe, even in places that should be untouchable. This kind of attack tries to break the heart of a community, not just win a battle. And that's why it matters so much. When markets are bombed, it shows us the deepest pain of war. It's a profound act that tries to destroy not just bodies, but the very fabric of normal human existence. It reminds us how fragile peace is, and how important it is to protect the places where people simply try to live their lives, free from fear. Chemical gas in the air. Have you ever stopped to think about the air around you? It's always there, invisible, constant, keeping us alive with every breath. But what if that invisible, life-giving air suddenly became a weapon? That's a horrifying idea, and it's exactly what happened when chemical gas was first used in war. It introduced a terrifying new kind of fighting. Soldiers didn't just face bullets or exploding shells anymore. Now, they had to confront a silent, unseen enemy drifting on the wind. Imagine watching a strange, hazy cloud roll towards you, knowing that if it touched you, it would burn your eyes, tear at your throat, and slowly, terribly, steal your ability to breathe. This wasn't about strength or brave charges. It was about being trapped, unable to escape, as the very air turned against you. Here's the thing, it felt like a profound betrayal. The atmosphere, meant to sustain life, was twisted into something designed to inflict unimaginable pain and death. Back in World War I, the use of gas was a shocking moment. Before this, even in terrible conflicts, there were unspoken rules. There was an idea of a fair fight, where you could usually see your opponent. Chemical gas changed all that. It caused a panic that spread faster than the gas itself. Think about walking into a room and suddenly smelling something terribly wrong, like a gas leak in your home. That cold fear of an invisible threat you can't fight directly. That's how it felt to those soldiers. They weren't just fighting an army, they were fighting the very air they needed to survive. And that's why this particular war crime truly matters. It wasn't just another weapon. It was an attack on the most fundamental human need to breathe safely. It made people question if there were any limits left to human cruelty. This suffering lingered, not just in the contaminated air, but in the deep scars of everyone who experienced it, leaving them forever wary of something as simple and vital as a gentle breeze. It reminds us how deeply trust in the basic elements of life can be shattered when humanity chooses such a dark path. Bodies left unburied. Have you ever wondered why we, as humans, care so much about what happens after someone dies? It's a deep, old feeling inside us. We want to say goodbye properly. We want to give respect. So, when war rips through a place, and bodies are just left where they fall, it's not just tragic, it's also a deep scar on our shared humanity. Here's the thing. Leaving the dead unburied and neglected is a war crime. It violates something really basic. Across almost every culture, for thousands of years, we've always understood this. We bury our dead. We mourn them. We give them a final resting place. This isn't just about religious beliefs, though those are often part of it. It's also about human dignity. It's about recognizing that every life had value, even after it ends. And it's about the living, too. Imagine if you lost someone you cared about, but you couldn't find them, couldn't say goodbye, couldn't even know if they were at peace. That feeling of not knowing, of not being able to finish the story, is incredibly painful. Think about it like this. When you finish a great book or movie, there's an ending, right? A clear ending. Even if it's sad, the story is complete. But when bodies are left unburied, it's like someone ripped out the last chapter. The person's story, and their family's grief, is left hanging open. This act, common in brutal conflicts, denies families the chance to grieve fully. It denies the community the chance to heal. It shows a level of cruelty that goes beyond just fighting. It's about crushing the spirit, even after life has left the body. So when we talk about bodies left unburied, we're not just talking about the dead. We're talking about the lasting harm done to the living. We're talking about how war can strip away even the most fundamental acts of kindness and respect that make us human. It reminds us that even in death, dignity matters, and denying that dignity leaves wounds that time struggles to mend. The silence after a massacre. Have you ever been in a really loud place, and then suddenly everything just stops? The music cuts out, or a big crowd leaves, and the quiet rushes in. It feels different, right? Not just peaceful. It feels heavy, like it remembers all that noise. Now, imagine that feeling, but 1,000 times worse. This is the silence after a massacre. It's not just when the guns stop firing or the bombs go quiet. It's a silence that screams. It's the deep, heavy stillness where laughter and everyday life once hummed. This quiet isn't empty. It's packed with absence. This kind of silence swallows everything. It holds echoes of fear, the ghosts of lost voices. Historically, after terrible violence, this quiet can settle over a town like a thick, dark blanket. It makes people afraid to speak, afraid to remember out loud. Sometimes, people try to use this silence to make others forget, to erase the horror. But for those who lived through it, the silence is often the loudest part. It's a constant, painful reminder of what was taken. Think about a time you broke something important, like a favorite toy or a musical instrument. The quiet isn't just a lack of noise, it's the quiet of what isn't there anymore. It's the quiet of loss, of the empty space where joy or music used to be. The silence after a massacre is like that, but for human lives. It's the quiet where families once gathered, where children played. It asks us to listen, not just with our ears, but with our hearts. It urges us to remember the stories, to honor those who can no longer speak. This heavy quietness holds a powerful truth. Even when noise fades, the pain and memory linger, demanding we pay attention and learn. Old folks left to suffer. Have you ever thought about grandparents during wartime? People who have lived long lives, seen so much, suddenly caught in chaos. War is terrible for everyone. But imagine being elderly, maybe not as strong, or needing special medicines. During conflict, when towns are attacked and people flee, who often gets left behind? It's often the old folks. They can't run as fast or carry much. Sometimes, families have to make impossible choices, or aid just can't reach them. This isn't just a sad accident. Sometimes, it's a deliberate act of cruelty, a war crime. The most vulnerable are simply abandoned. Throughout history, nearly every society has understood the need to protect its elders. It's a quiet agreement, a human instinct. We learn from them. They share wisdom. They represent our past. To leave them to suffer, to deny them basic care or safety, breaks a very old, unspoken rule of being human. It's like saying their lives don't matter as much, which is a painful idea. Think about a tiny bird's nest in a storm. The little birds are helpless. They depend entirely on their parents. If the parent birds abandon the nest, those baby birds won't survive. It's a harsh truth. In a similar way, our oldest citizens, after years of contributing to society, become like those little birds during a war. They need protection and care, maybe more than anyone. When that care is denied, by design or neglect, the impact is devastating, not just for them, but for humanity itself. It's a tough thing to think about. It makes you wonder about the kind of world we build and what we value. When we see elders suffering in war, it's a stark reminder of what happens when compassion is lost. It tells us that protecting the weakest among us isn't just about kindness. It's about holding on to what makes us truly human, even in the darkest times. It reminds us that every life has value, especially those who have given so much already. Captives treated cruelly. Have you ever felt completely helpless, like you had no control, no say in anything that happened to you? Imagine that feeling, but stretched out over days, weeks, or even months, in a place far from home, with no one you know. This is what it can be like for captives during war. When people are caught in a conflict, whether they are soldiers or civilians, they become captives. Here's the thing. Even in war, there are rules. For centuries, people have tried to agree on how to treat those who are no longer fighting. Rules like the Geneva Conventions exist for a reason. They say captives must be treated humanely. That means they get food, water, medical care, and are protected from violence. They should not be tortured, humiliated, or denied their basic human rights. But here's the problem. These rules are often shattered. Cruel treatment of captives is one of the oldest and most heartbreaking war crimes. It's about trying to break someone's spirit, to make them feel less than human. Think about a situation where someone constantly tries to make you feel worthless, or ignores your pleas, even for simple things like a drink of water. It slowly, deeply harms you, not just physically but inside, where your hope lives. It chips away at who you are. This kind of cruelty doesn't just hurt the person captured, it also shows a deep disregard for the humanity of everyone involved. It's like a darkness spreading, making it harder for anyone to find a way back to peace. When we hear stories of captives treated cruelly, it reminds us of a fundamental truth. Every person, no matter their situation, deserves basic respect and dignity, and that's why it matters so much. We must remember the importance of holding on to compassion, even in the hardest times. Stealing everything from towns. Imagine coming home, and nothing you own is there. Every familiar thing vanished. War isn't just big battles. Sometimes, armies move into towns and strip them bare. They take everything: pots, blankets, furniture, even toys, houses, stores, farms, all emptied. It's not just stealing, it's a harsh clearing, leaving behind deep, aching emptiness. Why do they do this? It's often more than just wanting things. It's a way to crush the spirit of the people living there, to make it impossible for them to rebuild, to feel safe. When basic daily things, a bed, a family photo, a child's book, are taken, dignity is stripped away. It sends a cruel message. You have nothing, you are nothing. Think about your own room. What if it was suddenly empty? Not just your phone, but your favorite hoodie, a poster, even the little things that make it yours. It's not about how much they cost. It's about the feeling of everything familiar vanishing. That sense of being completely exposed, utterly helpless. Your home feels foreign. It leaves a hollow feeling inside. When an entire town faces this, it's every home, every school, every shop. The whole place becomes a ghost town. People are left with memories, but no physical objects to hold them close. This makes it so hard to feel secure, to trust again. It's a deep wound, taking an incredibly long time to heal. Life and laughter fade, replaced by a quiet, heavy absence. The destruction of holy places. Have you ever wondered why people build beautiful, special places just for worship or prayer? Think about it. Across the world, in almost every culture, you'll find temples, mosques, churches, synagogues, and other sacred sites. These aren't just buildings made of stone and wood. Here's the thing, they are often the very heart of a community, holding centuries of stories, prayers, and hope. These structures represent what people believe in, where they come from, and who they are. They are gathering spots for joy and for sorrow, places where generations have found comfort. So, when war comes, and soldiers purposefully destroy these holy places, it's not just about knocking down walls. It's a cruel act that aims to break something much deeper. It's like someone coming to your neighborhood and tearing down the old community center, or the park where everyone plays and shares so many memories, or even your school's library where stories come alive. It's an attack on a community's soul, on its shared history, and on its identity. Imagine all the special moments, the quiet reflections, the celebrations, and even the sad goodbyes that happened in those places. Each stone, each stained glass window, each ancient book can hold layers of deeply personal and collective meaning. When these places are targeted in war, it's an attempt to erase a people's past, to silence their faith, and to make them feel lost. It says, your beliefs don't matter, your history doesn't matter. It's a way to break spirits, not just structures. But here's what's important. While stones can be shattered and symbols defaced, the beliefs and memories often live on, carried in the hearts and minds of the people who cherished those places. Even when a physical place is gone, the feeling of what it meant can endure, reminding everyone that true strength comes not just from walls, but from the unyielding human spirit within. Fake surrenders, real traps. Have you ever trusted someone completely, only for them to betray you in a shocking way? Imagine that feeling, but in a battlefield. This is the horror of fake surrenders. It happens when soldiers pretend to give up, waving a white flag, the universal sign for peace, for stopping the fight. But it's all a lie. They act defeated, making their opponents think the danger is over, maybe even making them feel a little safer. Here's the thing. As the enemy approaches, expecting surrender, these soldiers suddenly attack. It's a trap, pure and simple. This isn't just a sneaky battle move. It's a war crime, and it's deeply wrong. The rules of war, harsh as they are, include a basic understanding. A white flag means safety. It means someone is defenseless and should not be shot. To use that powerful symbol of peace as a weapon, to turn trust into a tool for killing, breaks a fundamental moral code. Think about it like this. If you're working on a group project, and someone pretends to be your friend, offering to help, only to sabotage your work at the last minute, the feeling of betrayal cuts deep. Right, you feel tricked, lied to, and it's hard to ever trust that person again. In war, a fake surrender does something even worse. It doesn't just cause immediate harm, it poisons the very idea of trust. After such an act, how can any soldier believe a real surrender? It makes future battles even more brutal, because mercy seems impossible. It strips away any chance of humanity, leaving behind only suspicion and fear. This kind of deception wounds the spirit of fairness and makes the world a much colder place. When aid workers were attacked, have you ever seen someone fall and instantly wanted to help them? That simple urge to make things better, it's a big part of being human. Now, imagine you rush to help, only to be stopped, even hurt, by someone else. That feeling, that moment of betrayal, is a little like what happens when aid workers are attacked. Aid workers choose to go into the world's most dangerous places. They are doctors, nurses, people who deliver food. They wear special vests, symbols that say, I'm here to help, not to fight. Their mission is clear, to ease suffering, to be a light in the darkest corners of war and disaster. For ages, there's been an unspoken rule. Even in war, you don't harm those trying to save lives. It's a basic human agreement. When someone is hurt, and a helper tries to give aid, that helper should be safe. But here's the problem. Sometimes in conflict, this basic understanding is ignored. People focused on saving lives become targets. Think of it like this. A firefighter is helping people escape a burning building. Someone then deliberately blocks their way or tries to hurt them. That doesn't just harm the firefighter. It stops everyone else from getting to safety. Attacking an aid worker isn't just hurting one person. It's attacking every child waiting for food, every injured person needing care. It rips away the chance for help. When an aid worker is targeted, it's a harsh blow against kindness itself. It strikes at the hand that offers comfort. It leaves not just destruction, but a chilling fear that even those who do pure good are not safe. And that's why it truly matters. It reminds us how precious hope is, and how vital it is to protect those who keep it alive. The fear of the night raids. Have you ever been tucked into your bed, feeling completely safe and warm? Maybe it's a stormy night, and the rain taps against the window, making you feel even cozier inside. That feeling of safety, of knowing your home is a shield, is so important. But imagine if that shield was gone. What if the darkest hours of night, when you're meant to rest, became the most dangerous? This is the terror of the night raid. It's not just about a battle fought in daylight, where you can see the enemy coming. Here's the thing. A night raid is a sudden attack, often by small groups, under the cover of darkness. They hit places where people are trying to sleep. Homes, villages, camps. The goal isn't always to capture a specific target. Often, it's about planting fear deep into the hearts of everyone. It's a way to break spirits, to make people feel unsafe, even in their own beds. This tactic is as old as war itself, used to control and scare. Think about it like this. Imagine you're sleeping over at a friend's house. You hear a strange creak downstairs. For a moment, your heart jumps. You know it's probably just the house settling, or maybe a pet. But for that brief second, your mind makes up all sorts of scary stories in the dark. Now, picture that feeling. But it's real. And it happens every night. You can't sleep deeply. Every shadow seems to move. Every sound makes you jump. Your body is always tense, waiting for something terrible. That's the constant, exhausting fear that a night raid creates. It slowly wears people down, stealing their peace and their hope. It robs them of the most basic human right, to feel safe in their own home, especially when they are most vulnerable. And that's why it matters. The memory of losing that safety, the constant fear, can linger for a lifetime, a quiet scar left by the darkness. People made homeless on purpose. What does home truly mean to you? It's more than just a building, isn't it? It's where your favorite things live, where you feel completely safe, where your family gathers. Now, imagine if someone decided, on purpose, to take all of that away. Not because of a natural disaster, like a flood, but because they wanted you to have nowhere left to go. This act, making people homeless on purpose, is a terrible war crime. During conflicts, some groups deliberately destroy homes, forcing families from their towns. This isn't by accident. It has a clear, chilling goal. It might be to remove people from an area they want to control, making takeover easier, or to break a community's spirit, hoping feeling lost makes them stop resisting. It's a deep wound, attacking the very foundation of their daily lives. It aims to empty a place, not just of buildings, but of its people and their stories. Think about your most cherished spot at home, maybe your bedroom, or a special chair where you read. Imagine that place, and everything meaningful, suddenly gone, and you knew you could never return. That sudden, empty, helpless feeling. It's like someone cut the anchor from your ship, leaving you to drift alone. This profound feeling of being cut off from your roots, but on a vast scale, happens to innocent families forced from their homes. This leaves a scar that runs incredibly deep. A home holds priceless memories, history, and a deep sense of belonging. When deliberately snatched away, it wounds not just the land, but the very hearts of people. It reminds us how precious having a safe, stable place is, and how vital it is to feel rooted. It teaches us about the human need for security and a comforting place to call our own, a need never to be intentionally shattered. Historic buildings turned to rubble. Have you ever walked past an old building, maybe one that's been standing for hundreds of years, and felt a quiet hum of history, like the whispers of generations past? What happens when war doesn't just target homes or army bases, but instead aims for these very special places, the ancient cathedrals, the libraries filled with forgotten stories, the castles that have witnessed centuries? Here's the thing. When war comes, it often doesn't care about beauty or memory. When a historic building is turned to rubble, it's much more than losing bricks and stone. It's like tearing pages out of a giant, shared family album, one that belongs to an entire city or even a whole country. These structures aren't just old. They are monuments to human achievement, to faith, to learning, and to daily life that unfolded long before we were born. They connect us, in a very real way, to our ancestors, to their dreams, their struggles, and their triumphs. They help us understand where we came from, and by doing that, they help us understand who we are. Imagine if all the treasured photos of your family were suddenly gone, every single one. No pictures of your great-grandparents, no baby photos, nothing. You'd still have your memories, but a piece of the story, a visual anchor, would be lost forever. That empty feeling, that gap, where something so important used to be, is what a community experiences when its historic landmarks are destroyed. It's a cruel act to purposefully erase these symbols of a culture, because it tries to break a people's spirit by wiping out their past, like someone trying to make you forget who you are. And that's why it matters so much. While new buildings can be constructed, yes, the irreplaceable history held within the ancient stones, the quiet echoes of time, those are gone forever. We are left with an empty space, a silent, aching wound in the heart of a place where a vibrant part of humanity once stood. It reminds us how delicate our shared human story is, and how crucial it is to remember, even when others try to make us forget. The weight of forced labor. Have you ever felt truly stuck, like you had to do something you absolutely didn't want to? Maybe a chore you hated, or a school assignment that felt endless. Now, imagine that feeling, but 1,000 times worse. Imagine being forced to work, not just for an hour or two, but all day, every day, with no say, no choice, and no pay. This is what forced labor is. It's when someone is made to work against their will, often under threat, maybe of violence, or losing their home, or their family getting hurt. It takes away everything that makes us us, our freedom, our human dignity, and our right to choose how we live our own lives. Think about it like a complicated science experiment. Imagine a plant that needs sunlight, water, and soil to grow strong and beautiful, but someone locks it in a dark closet, never watering it, never giving it light. The plant can't choose where to grow, or how to reach for the sun. It's the same for a person in forced labor. They can't choose their path, their purpose, or even their own moments of rest. Their basic human will, their very spirit, is trapped. From ancient times, when people were enslaved, to today's hidden factories or fields, this practice has always been about one person controlling another, treating them like a tool instead of a human being. It's a deep wound to what it means to be alive and free. Here's the thing, every human being is meant to dream, to learn, to connect with others. When someone is forced to labor, that spark inside them, that unique spirit, is crushed under a heavy burden. It's like trying to write your own story when someone else holds the pen, telling you every single word to write. The weight isn't just feeling tired or physically exhausted. It's the constant, heavy ache of a stolen future, of lost choices. It reminds us how incredibly precious our own freedom is, and how vital it is for every single person on earth to have the chance to live a life of their own choosing, to feel the warmth of their own decisions. Torture in secret rooms. Have you ever felt truly alone, in a place where no one could hear you, even if you screamed? That quiet fear is a shadow that can fall over secret rooms, where torture sometimes happens. It's a hard topic, but it's important to understand. When we talk about torture, it's not just about hurting someone's body. It's also about trying to break their spirit, to make them feel completely powerless and alone. These secret places are hidden from the world, designed to make someone disappear, both physically and mentally. For a long, long time, some people have wrongly believed that by causing extreme pain, they could force someone to reveal secrets or change their deeply held beliefs. But here's the thing. History shows us this rarely works to find truth. Instead, it causes immense and lasting suffering. The idea that hurting someone can bring about justice or honesty is a really old and deeply troubling thought. Thinkers throughout time have questioned this, asking, can anything good truly come from such evil? Most often, the answer has been a clear no. It's a bit like when you're trying to solve a super challenging puzzle. If someone keeps shouting answers at you, or even tries to shake the table, would that help you think clearly? No, right. It would just make you anxious, confused, and unable to focus. Torture does that to a person's mind and body, but in a much darker, more profound way. It messes with their ability to trust, to remember, and even to just be. So, when we consider these hidden rooms and the suffering within them, we see a painful truth. Locking people away and hurting them, hoping to gain something, damages everyone involved. It doesn't just harm the person enduring the pain, it also slowly chips away at the humanity of those who inflict it. It's a powerful reminder that true strength isn't about controlling others through fear. Instead, it's about choosing kindness, understanding, and believing that every single person, no matter what, deserves to be treated with respect and human dignity. The truth about human shields. The truth about human shields. Have you ever heard the words human shields and felt a knot in your stomach? It's a chilling term, and the reality is even more so. Here's the thing. It means putting innocent people, often civilians, right into the middle of danger, on purpose. Imagine a military group hiding weapons or soldiers among homes, schools, or hospitals. They do this hoping the other side won't attack, because it would mean hurting the very people they are sworn to protect. This isn't a new idea, but it's always been seen as deeply wrong. For centuries, even in times of war, there have been rules about protecting civilians. It's written into international agreements that using human shields is a war crime. Why? Because it attacks the most basic idea of fairness and human dignity. It makes ordinary people into tools, taking away their safety, their choices, and sometimes their very lives, just to protect someone else's fighting position. Think about playing a game, maybe capture the flag. Now imagine one team grabs an innocent bystander, someone just watching the game, and holds them in front of their flag, daring the other team to try and take it. It's not just unfair, it's a total violation of all the unwritten rules about right and wrong. No one should be forced to be a shield, and that's why it matters so much. When this happens, it's not just about a battle, it's about a profound betrayal of trust and humanity. It reminds us how precious every single life is, and how truly heartbreaking it is when that value is ignored, or worse, used as a weapon. It's a stark reminder that even in the darkest conflicts, there are lines that should never be crossed. Wounded soldiers left behind. Have you ever seen a friend fall on the playground, scrape their knee, or twisted an ankle? What's the first thing you do? You stop, you check on them, you help them up. It's a basic human instinct, right? To care for someone hurt, especially if they're part of your team. But imagine a battlefield, a place of noise and chaos. A soldier gets hit, seriously wounded, they can't move, they're crying out for help, and then their own comrades, or even enemy soldiers who capture them, choose to just leave them there. Not just because they can't reach them in the heat of battle, but because they decide not to. They walk away, leaving a fellow human being to suffer, perhaps to die alone. This isn't just a sad event, it's a war crime, a deep betrayal of what it means to be human. Think about it this way. When we play a game, even a tough one, there are rules. You don't hit below the belt. You don't cheat. In war, there are also rules, laid out in agreements like the Geneva Conventions. These rules say that wounded soldiers, whether they are from your side or the enemy's, must be cared for. They aren't threats anymore. They are just injured people. To abandon them, to let them die without medical care, is to ignore their basic right to humanity. It's like a doctor seeing someone bleeding out and choosing to just close their bag and walk away. That's not just wrong, it's a shocking failure of empathy. It chips away at our shared understanding of decency. When a wounded soldier is left behind, it isn't just their body that breaks, but their spirit, and a part of our collective human kindness. It reminds us that even in the darkest moments, choosing compassion, choosing to help, is always the stronger, more human path. Every life holds value, even in war, and abandoning that value, especially when someone is helpless, is a choice that echoes with a profound sadness. The stain of biological weapons. Have you ever thought about how different kinds of weapons leave different kinds of scars? Some tear down buildings, some leave behind twisted metal. But what about weapons you can't even see? This is where biological weapons come in, and they leave a truly haunting stain. Imagine trying to fight an enemy that isn't a person, but an invisible sickness. That's the terrifying idea behind biological warfare. It's about using tiny living things, the stain of biological weapons. Have you ever thought about a weapon you can't even see? Something tiny, invisible, but capable of bringing entire cities to their knees. That's the chilling reality of biological weapons. Instead of bombs or bullets, these weapons use sickness itself. They release dangerous germs, like viruses or bacteria, or even poisons made by living things, to cause widespread disease and terror. It's like turning a common cold into a deliberate, deadly attack, but on a massive scale. For a long time, people have known about sickness spreading. Even ancient armies sometimes threw plague-ridden bodies over city walls. But the idea of making disease a weapon, of deliberately infecting innocent people, feels deeply wrong. It's not about defeating an army in battle. It's about breaking a society from the inside out. It causes fear, confusion, and pain that no one can truly control once it's set free. It hits at our most basic human vulnerability, our bodies. Think about how a small sickness, like the flu, can spread through a school. Now, imagine if someone purposely introduced a superflu designed to make almost everyone terribly ill, or worse. It wouldn't just be about the sickness. It would be about the panic, the collapse of hospitals, the fear of touching anyone, the breakdown of trust. It's an attack on life itself, an attack on our shared sense of safety. That's why using biological weapons leaves such a deep, dark stain on human history. It crosses a line that feels universally wrong. It's a betrayal of humanity, a choice to use our shared fragility against us. This kind of war doesn't just destroy buildings, it poisons the air we breathe with fear, and it leaves a wound in the soul of the world that takes generations to heal. It reminds us that some wounds aren't visible, but they ache just as much. Voices silenced forever. Have you ever stopped to think about what we lose when a person is gone, especially when their life is taken unfairly? It's more than just a body, or a place at a table. It's a whole world of thoughts, dreams, and feelings that just vanishes. This is what voices silenced forever truly means. Imagine every person you know, and everyone you've never met, as a unique book, each one filled with their own stories, laughter, secrets, and future plans. When war crimes happen, these books aren't just closed. They are destroyed, unread, their pages ripped out before the story could ever finish. So much of what makes us human, our ability to share, to speak, to leave our mark, is lost. Here's the thing. History often tells us about numbers, how many soldiers, how many civilians, but behind every single number was a person with a voice, a parent, a child, a friend, an artist, or a scientist in the making. Someone with a unique way of looking at the world. When they are silenced, we lose not just one life, but all the potential, kindness, and ideas they might have brought to the world. Think about it like this. Imagine your school's choir. Every student brings a different note, a different tone, making the overall sound rich and full. What if suddenly, one of the best voices, one that added a special harmony, was just gone? The choir would still sing, but a part of its unique beauty, that specific sound, would be lost forever. No one else could make exactly that sound, and that's why it matters. These voices, though physically silent, echoed through time as a reminder of what we must protect. Their silence becomes a powerful plea for peace, urging us to remember the preciousness of every human life and the irreplaceable stories within them. We can never bring back what was lost, but we can remember, and we can choose to listen to the silence. The day the dams broke, have you ever felt like you were holding something back? A big secret or a strong feeling, and then suddenly, it all just burst out. In war, it's not just armies fighting. There are invisible walls meant to protect people. We call them rules of war or humanitarian laws. They're like dams, built to hold back the worst human cruelty, to keep things from getting too terrible. These rules took many years to create. People learned that even in a fight, you need lines you don't cross, like not hurting civilians or targeting hospitals. These are promises between countries, even enemies. But what happens when those dams break? When someone ignores all the rules, letting everything flood out? Think about a school project. Everyone agrees to do their part. You have rules, like no copying. That agreement is like a small dam, holding back chaos. But imagine if one person breaks every rule, cheats, or does no work, ruining it. The project falls apart, right? That feeling of disappointment, of trust broken. When the invisible dams in war break, the consequences are far worse. It's not just a project, it's lives, homes, and whole communities. When the dams of human decency and agreed upon rules finally break in conflict, it creates a flood of suffering no one can easily stop. It reminds us how fragile peace can be. It shows us how important those invisible walls are, even when things get hard. Because once they're gone, rebuilding trust and safety can take generations. Fleeing under fire, have you ever felt that surge of fear, that desperate need to just run? That gut feeling that tells you to get away, right now. Imagine your home is no longer safe. Imagine bombs falling, guns firing all around you. What's the first thing you'd do? You'd try to get yourself and your family to safety, wouldn't you? To find a quiet place, any place, where the noise stops and you can just breathe again. But here's the thing about fleeing under fire. It means that even as people are running, Even as they are clearly trying to escape the violence, they are still attacked. It's when soldiers or armed groups intentionally target civilians, men, women, children, who are visibly trying to get away from a conflict zone. They shoot at them on the roads. They bomb the convoys they travel in. They block the paths meant for safety, sometimes forcing people back into danger. This isn't just incredibly cruel, it's a serious war crime, a betrayal of trust. There are rules, even in the middle of war, even when things seem chaotic. These rules are known as the Geneva Conventions, and they are like a shared promise among nations. They say you must protect civilians. People who are trying to flee are not part of the fight. They are not holding weapons. They are just trying to survive, trying to find peace away from the bombs and bullets. When these rules are broken, it means the very idea of humanity, of basic respect, is under attack. Think about a school fire drill. Everyone is trying to get out, quickly and safely, following a clear path. No one would ever think it's okay to block the exits, or worse, to push people back into the burning building, right? Because everyone understands the goal is simply to get to safety. It's a shared understanding of protection. Fleeing under fire is like blocking that exit, but with real bullets and bombs. In a situation where people fear for their lives, the act of fleeing is about the most basic human instinct, survival. It's an urge to protect yourself and loved ones. When that instinct is met with intentional violence, when escape becomes another battlefield, it shatters something deep inside us. It shows a complete lack of empathy for life itself, and it reminds us how vital it is to protect those who are most vulnerable, especially when all they want, more than anything, is just to live. The betrayal of truces, the betrayal of truces. Have you ever had someone break a promise to you? Not a small one, like saying they'd call and then forgetting, but a truly important one. Maybe you had an argument with a friend, and you both agreed to take a break, to cool down. But then they talked behind your back during that very pause. That hollow feeling, that deep disappointment, is a bit like what happens when truces are betrayed in war. A truce is a sacred agreement. It's when fighting stops, just for a little while, maybe to gather the wounded, or to bury the dead, or even to talk about ending the battle. Think of it like a timeout in a very serious, dangerous game. Both sides put down their weapons. They agree, silently or out loud, to stop hurting each other for a set time. This pause, this fragile moment of peace, is built on trust. It's a tiny flicker of humanity in the darkness of conflict. But here's the thing. When one side uses that pause to gain an advantage, to plan a sneak attack, or to kill those who have let down their guard, it's a betrayal of the worst kind. It's not just breaking a rule, it's shattering a universal understanding, a silent code that says even in war, there are lines you don't cross. It's like agreeing to hold hands to cross a busy street, and then someone suddenly lets go, leaving you vulnerable and exposed. This act doesn't just hurt those caught in the attack, it poisons everything. It makes it harder to trust anyone again, even in moments where trust might save lives. It deepens the hate and makes peace seem impossible. Such acts remind us that while humans are capable of great kindness, we can also descend into profound cruelty, even breaking the very promises designed to offer a brief respite from suffering. It leaves behind a lingering scar, a lesson that trust, once broken in such a fundamental way, is incredibly difficult to rebuild. Starving out a city. Have you ever felt truly hungry? Not just almost dinner time hungry, but a deep, aching emptiness in your stomach that won't go away. Now imagine an entire city, thousands of people, feeling that terrible hunger, day after day. Here's the thing. Sometimes in war, people don't just fight with bombs, they use hunger as a weapon. It's called starving out a city, or a siege. An army surrounds a town, cutting off all food, water, and medicine. No trucks, no trains. The people inside are trapped. This isn't a new idea, it's an ancient tactic. The goal is to make life so unbearable that people inside simply give up. It's a way of breaking a spirit, not just a wall. Families face an impossible choice: surrender, or watch their children slowly fade. How unfair is that? It targets everyone: children, the elderly, the sick, not just soldiers. It's like if your phone suddenly lost all signal. No Wi-Fi, no data, no connection to the outside world. Imagine that feeling of being cut off, not just from fun, but for your very survival. Your body is a machine. It needs fuel. When that fuel runs out, everything slows down. Your energy drains, your thoughts get fuzzy, your body aches. It's a slow, agonizing process. So here's what happened. Innocent people became pawns in a cruel game. The quiet desperation of hunger can be a louder scream than any battle cry. It reminds us how precious our basic needs are, and how devastating it is when they are turned into tools of war. It teaches us about the deep strength of the human spirit, but also about the incredible pain humans can inflict. And that's why it matters to understand this suffering. Libraries and books burned. Have you ever thought about what makes a library special? It's not just shelves stacked with paper, right? It's a place holding stories, facts, poems, and ideas from every corner of the world. So, imagine a war where, amidst all the destruction, someone purposely sets fire to a library. They don't just burn a building, they burn the very knowledge inside. This is a war crime that feels especially cruel because it tries to destroy the human mind itself. Here's the thing, when books and libraries are burned, it's not just about turning paper into ash, it's about trying to erase history. It's about silencing voices that tell a different story than the one in power. For centuries, people who wanted total control knew that ideas were powerful. If people read different ideas, they might question things. So, to control what people thought, they tried to control what people read. Burning books was a way to make sure only one way of thinking, one version of the truth, survived. Think of it like this. Your school backpack isn't just a bag. It holds your notebooks, your drawings, your test papers. It shows what you've learned, what you've thought. If someone ripped out and burned every page from every notebook you ever wrote in, it would feel like a part of your own journey, your own learning, was lost forever. When a library burns, it's like humanity's shared backpack, filled with generations of thoughts and discoveries, being emptied and destroyed by fire. And that's why it matters so much. It's a sad thought, seeing such places of light and learning consumed by flames during a war. But here's what I found. Even when books turn to ash, the ideas often find a way to live on, passed from person to person. It reminds us how fragile, yet how incredibly powerful, knowledge truly is. It teaches us to cherish every story and every fact, because they are the building blocks of our shared understanding of the world. When Red Cross didn't mean safety, have you ever seen the Red Cross symbol? On a bandage, a hospital tent, maybe even in a movie about doctors helping in a war zone. It's a powerful sign, isn't it? A promise. Here's the thing. This symbol is meant to be a universal signal. It tells everyone in a conflict, stop. These people are helping the hurt. They are not fighters. Leave them alone. It's a rule, a promise made hundreds of years ago, part of what we call the Geneva Conventions. These were like agreements, saying, okay, if you're going to fight, you still have to protect the wounded and those who care for them. The Red Cross symbol became that promise, a shield for mercy. But here's the problem. In war, not everyone follows the rules. There are times, heartbreaking times, when that bright red cross, meant to protect, was ignored. Or worse, it was targeted. Imagine seeing that symbol on a hospital, knowing it should mean safety for patients and doctors, but then watching it come under attack. It's like a school fire drill. When the alarm rings, everyone knows. You stop, you go to the safe spot. It's a rule. You expect it to work. Now, imagine the alarm rings, but someone blocks the door, or pushes you back inside. That's how it felt when the Red Cross symbol, this universal signal for help and safety, was disregarded. It wasn't just breaking a rule, it was breaking a trust, a deep promise to the world that even in war, some things are sacred. When those who were sworn to heal are harmed, and the places of healing are destroyed, something very fundamental about humanity is lost. It makes you wonder, if we can't trust the symbols meant to save lives, what can we trust? It's a heavy thought, but it reminds us how fragile peace can be, and how important it is to uphold promises, especially the ones that protect the most vulnerable among us. The cost of revenge bombing. Have you ever felt a deep, burning anger after someone hurt you, and all you wanted was to strike back, to make them feel a fraction of that pain? Revenge bombing works like that, but on a terrifying, massive scale. It's when a country or group attacks another, not to win a battle, but mostly to get even. It's a fierce response, meant to cause similar suffering, to balance the scales of pain. This action might feel natural, like an instinct. They hit us, so we hit them back. Harder, but history shows this path rarely brings peace. Think about some big wars. When one city was brutally attacked, sometimes the response was to bomb their enemies' cities in return. Instead of ending the conflict, these acts often made the hatred burn deeper. They added more fuel, leading to even more terrible destruction. The old idea of an eye for an eye often leaves everyone hurt and unable to see a way forward. Imagine a small argument between friends. One person says something unkind. The other, feeling stung, immediately says something even meaner back. Does that truly solve anything? Does it make either of them feel good in the long run? Or does it just make everything worse, creating a wider gap, making the original problem much harder to fix? It's similar with revenge bombing. When bombs fall out of a desire for payback, they don't just flatten buildings, they also crush hopes, deepen fear, and plant lasting seeds of bitterness and anger in countless hearts. So, the real cost isn't only the physical damage or the terrible lives lost in that moment. It's the endless cycle it creates. It's the constant loop of pain, where each act of vengeance demands another, trapping people in a spiral of violence that seems impossible to escape. Breaking this cycle is incredibly difficult. It forces us to ask tough questions about what true strength means and what real peace actually looks like. It reminds us that maybe the bravest choice isn't always to hit back, but to find a different, harder way forward. Executions without trial. Have you ever felt something was deeply unfair, with no voice? In war, some rules are vital. Breaking them is a war crime. One of the most shocking is executions without trial. What does this mean? It's when a person is killed without ever facing a judge or jury. No lawyer speaks for them, no chance to tell their side. Imagine a life ended by a secret decision made in the shadows. This destroys the very idea of justice. For centuries, societies built systems for fair hearings. This idea, due process, means everyone deserves a chance, even those accused of serious crimes. It protects human life and dignity. When war breaks out, these basic rights are often threatened. But international laws, like the Geneva Conventions, demand respect for everyone. Executions without trial ignore these rules completely. Think about being accused of a serious problem at school. Instead of a meeting, a principal just decides you're guilty. No questions. You'd feel crushed, powerless. Now, imagine that decision isn't about school, but about your very life. That's the terrifying truth of executions without trial. It leaves a deep wound of injustice. It shows a complete disrespect for human value, proving that the most basic right, a fair chance, can be taken away. True justice, even in the darkest times, needs an open path, not a hidden one. Every life deserves that. The horror of child soldiers' stories. Can you imagine being a kid, just like you, but instead of going to school or playing with friends, you're forced to hold a weapon? That's the chilling reality for child soldiers. These are boys and girls, sometimes as young as 7, taken from their homes and made to fight in wars. They're forced to do terrible things, things no child should ever see or do. Their childhoods are ripped away, replaced with fear, violence, and unimaginable burdens. For a long time, across different periods, children have unfortunately been part of conflicts. But the idea that children should be protected, that war is something only adults should face, that's a more modern understanding. It grew from recognizing their innocence, their fundamental right to grow up safe and healthy. The world now largely agrees that using children in war is a truly horrific war crime. It breaks international laws because it steals their future and shatters their very spirit. Think about how a strong, constant wind can bend a young tree. If that wind keeps blowing hard enough, day after day, the tree might grow permanently twisted, or even break completely. That's a bit like what happens to a child's developing mind and fragile heart when they're exposed to war. They are so young, still forming who they are, and these brutal experiences twist their understanding of life. It makes it incredibly difficult for them to ever feel completely whole or joyful again. It's a profound reminder that even in the darkest corners of human conflict, there's an unbreakable truth we must always hold on to. Childhood should always be a sacred time of learning, play, and safety. It should never be a time of terror, forced labor, or weapons. And understanding this deep injustice helps us appreciate our own peace, and inspires us to hope fiercely for a future where every single child on this earth can simply be a child. Cities made unlivable. Have you ever thought about what makes your home feel like home? It's more than just a building, right? It's where your stuff is, where you feel safe, where your family gathers. And cities made unlivable. Can you imagine your own hometown, the streets you know, the parks you visit, becoming so broken that no one could live there anymore? It's a hard thought, But this is exactly what happens when war targets cities in a way that makes them unlivable. It's more than just a building getting bombed. This means a city is so damaged, so poisoned, or so completely stripped of what people need to survive, that it can no longer be a home. People have to leave, and they can't come back. Here's the thing, cities are special. For thousands of years, they have been where people gather for safety, for trade, for culture, and to build futures. They are centers of life. So, when a city is made unlivable, it's a deep kind of destruction. It's not just about winning a battle, it's about erasing a community, breaking its spirit, and removing its very ability to exist. It's an ancient idea in warfare, but modern weapons make it happen faster and more completely than ever before. Think about your own home. Imagine if the water stopped running, the electricity went out for good, and the air outside became dangerous to breathe. What if the roads to your house were destroyed, and any food deliveries just stopped? Even if the walls of your house still stood, it wouldn't be a home anymore. You couldn't stay there. That's a little like what happens to cities made unlivable. The physical structures might be damaged, but the actual life of the place is choked out, making it impossible to survive. And that's why it matters so much. A city is more than just buildings. It holds memories, history, and the hopes of everyone who lives there. When a city becomes unlivable, it's a silent scream. It's the loss of generations of effort, the scattering of families, and the deep sadness of a place that once hummed with life, now quieted by the heavy hand of war. It reminds us that war doesn't just end lives, it can end the very idea of home. The theft of priceless art. Have you ever made something you truly loved? Maybe a drawing or a special craft. Imagine someone taking it, not because they liked it, but just to make you feel empty, to erase your effort. That's a bit like what happens when priceless art is stolen during war. It's not just about money or owning something pretty. It's much deeper. Art carries stories. It's a quiet voice from the past, showing us how people lived, what they believed. Think of old statues or paintings from hundreds of years ago. For entire countries, these are like massive family photo albums, showing their journey, their identity. During war, armies don't just attack buildings, they often target a culture itself. They steal these precious artworks, sometimes to sell them, but often just to rip away a piece of a nation's soul. Here's the thing, taking a famous painting from a museum is like someone burning all your family photos. It's not just destroying objects, it's stealing memories, shared feelings, proof of who people were and what they created. It makes it harder to understand where you came from, harder to feel connected to those who came before you. This kind of theft hurts more than a physical wound. It's a wound to a people's spirit. When a nation loses its art, it loses parts of its shared memory, its unique beauty, its long history. It's like losing a piece of your own heart. It shows us that in war's darkness, some try to erase not just lives, but the very ideas and memories that make us human. And that's why it's a war crime that echoes through time. Graves desecrated and forgotten. Have you ever thought about what makes a place sacred, or truly important? A grave isn't just dirt and a stone marker. It's a final resting place, a quiet spot that holds memories, a life story. When someone intentionally messes with a grave, damages it, or digs it up, that's called desecration. It's a profound act of disrespect, like trying to erase someone's last footprint, or tearing down a cherished memory. Across almost every culture on Earth, for thousands of years, people have held deep respect for those who have passed away. This isn't just about the physical body, it's about honoring a life, a family, and a person's place in history. It connects us to our past, to where we came from. And when war breaks out, this ancient shared respect can be brutally shattered. Think about your favorite photo album, filled with pictures of people you love. Imagine if someone came and ripped out the faces, or scribbled all over them, making them unrecognizable. That feeling of shock, of something deeply important being ruined, is a small echo of what it feels like when a grave is desecrated. It's like stealing a piece of history, a part of someone's heart, leaving only emptiness behind. In times of war, hate can grow so strong that people attack even the quiet places where the dead sleep. Soldiers' graves, civilian cemeteries that can be dug up, damaged, or simply forgotten, left to decay. This isn't just about property damage, it's a deliberate act to wound the feelings of an entire community, trying to erase their heroes, their sorrow, or their very presence from the land. It reminds us how deeply conflict can wound us all, reaching beyond the living and touching the very ground where our ancestors rest. It tells us that even after our life ends, the need for respect, for a quiet place of memory, remains so important. And when that's taken away, a scar is left, not just on the land, but on the spirit of humanity. A quiet wound that lingers long after the fighting stops. Using disease as a weapon. Have you ever thought about what makes a weapon truly terrifying? Sometimes, it's not a loud explosion or a sharp blade. Sometimes, the most frightening weapon is something you can't even see. Imagine something so small, so invisible, it could bring down armies, empty cities, and make entire populations sick. That's the chilling idea behind using disease as a weapon. It means purposely spreading germs, like bacteria or viruses, to make people ill, to weaken an enemy, or even to cause chaos. This isn't just about fighting, it's about turning nature itself, the very air we breathe, into something dangerous. People have done this for centuries. History tells us stories of armies catapulting diseased bodies over castle walls, hoping to infect the people trapped inside. It was a cruel tactic, meant to break spirits and bodies without a single sword being drawn. Here's the thing. Think about when a nasty stomach bug or a bad flu goes around your school. One person gets sick, then another, and soon, classrooms are half empty. People feel awful, they miss important things, and everything feels disrupted. Now, imagine if someone wanted that to happen on a much larger scale, not just in your school, but across whole towns or countries. It's like taking that everyday germ and giving it a terrible, evil purpose. It's not just about winning a fight, it's about making everyone suffer, regardless of who they are or what they believe. This kind of weapon strikes at the most basic human need, to feel safe and healthy. It turns something meant to protect us, our immune system, against us. And that's why it matters. It reminds us that some lines, some acts, are so deeply wrong because they target the innocent and make the natural world a source of terror. It asks us to think about what true humanity means, even in the darkest times. The long shadow of landmines. Imagine a danger that waits, silent and unseen, long after the fighting stops. That's what landmines do. They are bombs buried in the ground, designed to explode when someone steps on them, or a vehicle drives over them. Soldiers plant them during wars to stop enemy movements. But here's the thing, landmines don't have an off switch once the battle is over. They don't know the difference between a soldier and a child walking to school, or a farmer working their field. This means anyone can trigger them. Many wars end, the tanks roll away, and the guns fall silent. But the landmines stay. Some types can remain deadly for 50 years, even longer. Think about that. A hidden weapon planted today could potentially hurt your great-grandparents, your parents, you, and even your future children, all because of a conflict from generations ago. It's like an invisible trap laid by history itself. Imagine you're trying to clean up a room, but there are tiny, unseen hazards everywhere. You can't see them, but one wrong step, and boom. That's what life is like for millions of people in countries where landmines were used. Their fields, homes, and even paths to water can become places of sudden, unimaginable pain. The war might be over, but for these communities, the danger never really leaves. It's a fear that lives in the very soil itself, a constant threat lurking beneath the surface of daily life. It means the scars of war aren't just visible on destroyed buildings or in sad memories. They are literally buried underground, waiting, and that's why it matters. This hidden threat keeps taking limbs and lives, slowly chipping away at hope. It reminds us that some actions, even taken in war, can echo for generations, changing countless lives long after the last shot is fired. The shadow of these buried bombs truly is long. Prisoners used for experiments. Have you ever thought about what it means to truly own yourself, your own body, your own choices? In times of war, especially, we've seen moments when that basic right, that feeling of owning yourself, was completely taken away. Sometimes, prisoners of war, or even regular people caught up in conflict, were used for terrible experiments. This wasn't about finding cures to help them. It was about using them, against their will, as test subjects. Think about it. We learn in science that experiments need rules. They need willing participants, people who understand what's happening and agree to it. That's called informed consent. It's a huge deal. It means you get to say yes or no about what happens to your body. But in these dark chapters of history, that idea was completely ignored. People were treated like objects, not humans. It's like if a doctor needed to test a new medicine, but instead of asking for volunteers, They just decided to give it to kids in a classroom without anyone's permission and without explaining the risks. That sounds really wrong, right? Because those kids didn't choose it. They couldn't say no, and they might not even know what was being done to them. And that's the core of it. These prisoners, already stripped of their freedom, their homes, their dignity, then had their very bodies taken from them too. They endured pain, sickness, and sometimes death, all for research that often had no real value or was simply cruel. Their suffering was immense. Imagine the fear, the helplessness, being poked, prodded, poisoned, frozen, or infected, with no way to stop it, no one to protect you. Here's the thing. Every person, no matter their situation, has a right to their own body, a right to decide what happens to them. This terrible war crime reminds us how vital that basic human respect is. It shows us why we must always protect the idea that every life holds value, and no one should ever be used as a tool for another's gain. It's a heavy thought, but remembering these stories helps us understand why we must fight so hard for human dignity, always. False flags and deception. Have you ever stopped to think about what it means to be truly tricked? Not just a small prank, but a deep, dangerous kind of trickery, where someone tries to make you believe a lie so big it could start a war. This is the heart of false flags and deception. Imagine a moment when a country wants to attack another, but they don't have a good reason. So, here's what happens. They might stage an attack on themselves, or on a neutral place, but make it look like the other country did it. They wave a false flag, a symbol that points to someone else, even though they are the real culprits. It's like if you accidentally broke something valuable at home, but then you quickly put your younger sibling's favorite toy right next to the broken pieces. You hope your parents will think your sibling did it, not you. That's a small-scale false flag. In wars, it's much darker. Leaders throughout history have used this trick. They know that if they can make their own people believe they've been attacked unjustly, it creates a powerful wave of anger and a demand for revenge. And that anger can lead to terrible violence. It's a way to manipulate feelings, to turn fear into fury, and to make people support actions they might otherwise question. Think about how unfair that feels, even in your own life, when someone blames you for something you didn't do, and they even set up clues to make it look like you're guilty. It hurts, you feel helpless. But in wars, this kind of blame game can destroy cities and end countless lives. These acts of deception don't just fool people, they steal their trust. They make it harder for anyone to believe what is real, what is true. And when truth is lost, finding peace becomes a much, much longer journey, often stained with innocent blood. It makes you wonder how much pain could be avoided if everyone just chose honesty. The loss of a generation. Have you ever stopped to think about what makes a community truly strong, truly vibrant? It's not just the buildings or the roads, it's the people, especially the young people. They are the ones with new ideas, fresh energy, and dreams for tomorrow. But here's the thing. War crimes don't just take individual lives. Sometimes, they steal an entire generation. Imagine a whole group of young adults, full of promise, ready to become doctors, artists, engineers, or just caring neighbors. And then, because of violence, because of war's cruelty, they are gone. This isn't just a few people, it's thousands, sometimes millions, of young men and women. The world loses their inventions, their art, their kindness, their leadership. It's like a garden where all the young seeds are taken before they can sprout. The ground is left bare. The flowers meant to bloom never will. In history, we see this profound sadness again and again. War takes away the very people who would have built schools, found cures, written stories, or simply raised families, and that's why it matters so deeply. A country isn't just missing its soldiers, it's missing its future teachers, its future thinkers, its future parents. Think of your own classroom, full of unique talents. One person is a brilliant writer, another is amazing at math, someone else is a kind friend who always listens. Now imagine if all those students, all those specific talents, were suddenly gone. The classroom would be silent. That quietness, that absence, stretches far beyond just one room. It affects the whole school, the whole town. This empty space, this missing potential, is what we call the loss of a generation. It leaves a long shadow, a quiet ache, for decades. And it reminds us that true peace means protecting every single possibility, every single dream. When peacekeepers couldn't help imagine you're in trouble, truly scared, and you call for help, you expect someone strong, ready to protect you. Right. What if they came, but but couldn't stop the danger. That's sometimes the heartbreaking reality for people caught in war. Peacekeepers are soldiers from different countries, often in blue helmets, sent by the United Nations. Their job is to stand between fighting groups, protect innocent people, and keep agreements. They are a shield. They carry weapons, but only for defense. Their main goal isn't to fight a war, but to stop one, or keep it from getting worse. But sometimes, even these brave peacekeepers face impossible situations. They might be outnumbered, outgunned, or given strict rules. They watch as terrible things happen, unable to step in. Orders might forbid it, or intervening could make things worse for everyone. Imagine a bully hurting someone, and you're told you can't touch them, only stand nearby. The helplessness, the deep sorrow they feel is immense. For those they were sent to protect, that moment when the shield doesn't hold is a true nightmare. Think of it like a lifeguard at a pool. A lifeguard is there to keep everyone safe. But what if a huge sudden storm hit, and the lifeguard only had a small pool noodle for many people in a raging current? Their training, their desire to help all are there, but the disaster is too big, their tools too few. They are a promise of safety, but sometimes the problem is bigger than that promise. It reminds us that peace isn't just about sending help, it's about how much power that help has. And if the world truly wants peace enough to give peacekeepers the tools to act, it's a heavy thought, realizing that even with good intentions, the fight for peace can be a struggle where good people feel powerless. It shows us that preventing war takes more than uniforms. It takes a global commitment to care for our fellow humans. The attack on refugee camps, imagine you had to leave everything behind. Your home, your school, your friends, because it wasn't safe anymore. Where would you go? For millions of people around the world, that place is a refugee camp. These aren't fancy places. They're often just temporary shelters, tents, or simple buildings, set up to give people a little peace, a little safety, when war or disaster forces them from their homes. People who arrive there have often seen terrible things. They've lost so much. These camps are meant to be sanctuaries, safe zones where people, especially children, can finally breathe, eat, and try to heal. It's an unspoken rule, a basic human understanding across cultures and history. You don't harm those who are seeking refuge. From ancient times, even in the middle of battles, there were always places considered off-limits, where the wounded or the innocent could find protection. This idea is about our shared humanity, about knowing that even in the darkest times, we must protect the most vulnerable. It's built on empathy, the feeling of putting yourself in someone else's shoes. Think about a school fire drill. Everyone knows to go to the designated safe spot, right? You trust that spot will be protected, that no one would make it more dangerous. Attacking a refugee camp is like someone deliberately setting fire to that safe spot during an emergency. It shatters that basic trust, that fundamental promise of safety when people need it most. It means there's almost nowhere left to go. So, when refugee camps are attacked, it's not just a physical attack, it's an attack on that very idea of sanctuary. It leaves people feeling utterly exposed, with no safe harbor left. It's a reminder of how fragile safety can be, and why it's so important for us to value and protect those basic human promises of care and shelter for everyone, especially those who have nothing left. It shows us how deeply we need kindness in a world that can sometimes be very, very harsh. Disappearing people, no trace. Have you ever lost something important? Maybe a favorite toy or a special photo. You searched everywhere, but it was just gone. That feeling of not knowing, of having no answer, can really hurt. Now, imagine that feeling, but it's about a person, a mom, a dad, a sibling, or a friend. Disappearing people, no trace, is a terrible phrase. It means someone was taken, often by soldiers or a powerful group, and then they vanish. No body, no grave, sometimes not even a witness. They just disappear from the world, like they were never there. It's not just about dying, it's about their existence erased, and the truth hidden. That's why it matters. This kind of act is a special cruelty during wars or conflict. It's called enforced disappearance. It takes away a person's rights, and also creates endless pain for their family. Families are left in limbo, without answers. They can't mourn or move on because they don't know what happened. They live with a constant ache. Every person deserves to be remembered. When someone disappears this way, a part of history gets ripped out. Think about a puzzle. You spend hours putting it together. It's almost finished, but one piece is missing. Just one. The picture isn't complete. That missing piece leaves a gap, an emptiness in the picture. That's what it's like for a family when a loved one disappears. There's a huge, painful hole in their lives, a missing piece that can never be found, because the truth is gone. Knowing the truth is so vital. Even when the truth is hard, it gives us something to hold on to. When people vanish without a trace, it tries to erase their story, to make them unhappy. But remembering them, and wanting to know what happened, is how we fight back against that erasure. It's how we say every life matters, and every person deserves to be accounted for, even if only in our hearts. The world watched and wept. Have you ever seen something truly heartbreaking happen, even if it wasn't right in front of you? Maybe on the news, or in a video. Something so wrong that it makes your stomach drop and your eyes sting. That feeling, that shared ache, is what we mean when we say the world watched and wept. It's about those moments when terrible things happen far away, but the images and stories reach everyone. People in different countries, speaking different languages, all seeing the same horror unfold. They might not be able to stop it, but they can feel the pain. They watch, perhaps on a flickering television screen or a computer monitor, and they cry. Not just tears for the victims, but tears for humanity itself. Think about it like this. If you see someone fall and hurt themselves badly on the playground, even if they're not your friend, you feel a pang of sadness, right? You might wish you could help. Now imagine that on a much, much bigger scale. When war crimes happen, it's like the entire world is on that playground, seeing someone being terribly hurt. And the pictures and videos are the way we all see it, even from miles away. This idea isn't new. For centuries, people have felt connected to the suffering of others, even before the internet. Writers would share tales of hardship, and artists would paint scenes of struggle. But now, with instant news, the world truly sees together. The sheer scale of witnessing can be overwhelming. And here's the thing, this shared sadness, this collective weeping, it shows us something important. It shows that deep down, most people don't want to see others suffer. It reminds us of a basic human truth. We are all connected. When one part of the world hurts, a little piece of us hurts too. It's a quiet but powerful statement that some lines should never be crossed, and that compassion lives on, even in the darkest times. And that's why it matters. The pain of witnessing atrocities. Have you ever seen something so awful, so unfair, that it felt like a punch right in your stomach? Not just something sad, but something that makes you question everything good in the world. That's a little like the shadow of witnessing atrocities. It's not just about what people do to others, it's about what seeing those acts does to the people who watch. Here's the thing, when someone sees a terrible war crime, it doesn't just pass by their eyes. It lands deep inside them, settling like a heavy stone. Imagine a soldier, a doctor, or just a child caught in the wrong place. They don't choose to see these things, but once they do, those images, sounds, and that feeling of helplessness can stay with them for a lifetime. For centuries, people have talked about the scars of war. Many of those scars aren't from bullets, but from memories. Philosophers and writers have often wondered how the human spirit copes with such darkness, and the lasting marks it leaves. Think of it like this. If you accidentally touch something incredibly hot, the burn might heal, but the memory of that pain, the fear of touching it again, stays with you. Witnessing an atrocity is like a burn, but for your mind and heart, it changes how you see the world, sometimes forever. It can make you feel distant from others, or question humanity itself. It's a weight carried, a silent scream that echoes long after the event is over. And that's why understanding this pain is so important. It helps us see the full cost of conflict. It reminds us that war doesn't just destroy buildings or bodies, it can shatter spirits. It makes us pause and remember the invisible wounds, urging us to be kinder, more understanding, and to strive for a world where such deep scars are never created. Breaking all the rules of war. What happens when the lines we draw suddenly disappear in a conflict? It's a tough idea, but even in war, there are rules. These aren't just suggestions, they are promises nations make, even when fighting. They protect people who can't fight back, injured soldiers, doctors, nurses, and especially innocent civilians, kids, parents, grandparents. Here's the thing, these rules exist because humanity knows there must be limits to suffering. For centuries, people tried to make war less awful. Leaders realized with no rules, conflict would be absolute chaos, a darkness no one could recover from. So, countries wrote down international laws. These laws include treating prisoners humanely, not targeting hospitals, and not using certain cruel weapons. That's why it matters. These rules try to keep a tiny bit of humanity alive, even when everything else feels lost. Think about a soccer game. Rules exist. No hands, stay in bounds. If a player picks up the ball or tackles unfairly, the game falls apart. Everyone feels cheated, unsafe. That's a simple example. But in war, breaking these rules isn't just a game. It means innocent lives are deliberately put in danger. Trust is completely shattered, not just for a moment, but for generations. It creates deep wounds that refuse to heal. When these rules are broken, it's like tearing holes in the fabric of our shared world. It's not just about winning or losing. It's about what we lose as people, as a global community. It makes us wonder about the darkness that takes over when mercy and basic decency are forgotten. But here's the lesson. Understanding why these rules exist helps us hold on to hope for a more humane future. It reminds us of the constant effort needed to protect the vulnerable, even when everything feels like it's falling apart. The legacy of unexploded bombs. What if war didn't really end when the last shot was fired? What if some parts of it just waited? This is the chilling reality for millions of people around the world, living with the legacy of unexploded ordnance, or UXO. These are bombs, grenades, and shells dropped or fired during conflicts, but which, for some reason, never exploded. They lie hidden beneath fields, in forests, sometimes even under homes and playgrounds. They are silent, forgotten pieces of history, still full of their deadly purpose, just waiting for someone, something, to disturb them. Countries might rebuild after a war, and people try to go back to their lives. But for many, especially in places like Laos, Cambodia, or parts of Europe from World War II, the war never truly left. It buried itself in the ground, becoming a constant, hidden threat. Imagine walking through a beautiful park, but knowing that a single wrong step could trigger a forgotten danger from decades ago. It's like a sharp, broken piece of glass left hidden in the sand at a beach. The sun is out, the water is calm, everything looks peaceful. But that hidden piece can suddenly cut deep, even years later, just because someone wasn't looking. These bombs are those sharp, forgotten dangers of old conflicts. Every year, these hidden traps claim innocent lives. Long after the soldiers have gone home, they explode when a farmer plows a field, when children play in the dirt, or when construction workers dig foundations for new buildings. It's a silent, heartbreaking continuation of war, hurting the very people who had nothing to do with the fighting. So, the legacy of unexploded bombs isn't just about what happened in the past. It's about how the terrible choices made long ago still shape today. It reminds us that war's true cost isn't measured only in battles or casualties, but in the quiet, lasting fear that lingers, buried in the ground, always reminding us of the human price of violence. Forcing people to change sides. Have you ever felt like someone was trying to make you something you're not? Like you had to pretend to believe in an idea you didn't, just to avoid trouble. Now imagine that feeling, but multiplied by 1,000, with real danger hanging over your head. This war crime is about making people switch loyalties, to betray their own community, their country, or even their deepest beliefs, not because they want to, but because they're forced to. Here's the thing, our identity, who we are, it's made up of so many parts. Our family, our friends, where we come from, what we believe in. These things shape us. In times of war, when armies invade, sometimes they don't just want to control land, they want to control minds. They demand that people give up their old flags, their old gods, their old ways of thinking. They might threaten families, livelihoods, or even lives, until people outwardly agree to become something new, something that serves the invaders. Think about it like this. Imagine being a huge fan of one sports team, wearing their colors, knowing all their players. Then, suddenly, someone powerful tells you that if you don't instantly become a fan of their rival team, cheering for them and saying you always have, something really bad will happen to your family. It's not just about changing what you say. It's about forcing you to betray a part of yourself, your history, your heart. It feels wrong deep down, doesn't it? This act of forcing people to change sides isn't just about winning a battle. It's an attack on the very core of what makes us human, our ability to choose, to feel, to belong. It leaves scars that aren't visible but are carried deep inside. It reminds us how precious our freedom to think and believe for ourselves truly is, because when that's taken away, a piece of who we are is stolen, too. Killing captured spies. Have you ever wondered about the hidden rules, even in war? It's a strange thought, but even when countries are fighting, there are lines you aren't supposed to cross. And one of those lines has to do with people who operate in the shadows. Spies. Here's the thing. In war, soldiers wear uniforms. That uniform means something. If a uniformed soldier is captured, they become a prisoner of war, or POW. There are very clear rules about how they must be treated. They can't just be killed. But spies are different. They don't wear a uniform. They work in secret, trying to gather information, often blending in with regular civilians. They are not like regular soldiers, so if a spy gets caught, they aren't protected by the same POW rules. They can be tried for espionage, which is a serious crime. And yes, in some places, a person found guilty of espionage might face the death penalty. But here's the problem. That punishment has to come after a fair trial, a process where they can defend themselves. The moment you capture a spy and then just execute them without any trial, without any chance for justice, that's when it often becomes a war crime. It's kind of like this. Imagine you have a strict school rule about using your phone in class. If you get caught, maybe you get detention. That's the agreed upon consequence. But what if, instead of detention, the principal just immediately expelled you, right there on the spot, without asking you any questions or letting you explain? That would feel wrong, wouldn't it? Even if you broke the rule, there's a process, a fair way things are supposed to happen. These rules, even for spies, are about holding on to a piece of what makes us human. They remind us that even in the darkest times, when fear and anger are everywhere, we still have to try to uphold some basic ideas of fairness and justice. Because once those ideas disappear entirely, then truly, anything can happen. And that's a dangerous path for everyone. The looting of national treasures. Have you ever thought about what makes a place truly feel like home? It's more than just buildings. It's the shared stories, the old memories, the special things passed down. War rips away so much, lives homes, peace. But sometimes, it also steals the very soul of a nation. This is called the looting of national treasures. Imagine a really old statue, a famous painting, or a scroll written hundreds of years ago. These aren't just expensive items. They are pieces of a country's story. They tell people who they are and where they came from. When an army invades and takes these treasures, they do much more than just stealing things. They tear out important pages from a country's history book. They try to make people forget their past, to erase who they are. Think about your own family. What if someone broke into your home and took all your photo albums, or stole a special necklace from your grandma, or your dad's old book he read to you as a kid? Those items hold precious memories, pieces of your family's identity. If they vanished, a part of your shared history would disappear. And here's the thing. Taking these items during war is so wrong. It's a war crime because it attacks a nation's spirit, not just its land. It leaves a deep wound, hurting far more than broken buildings. These treasures link generations together. They are like whispers from the past and hopes for the future. When they are stolen, that important link is broken. The world loses something precious when a culture loses its voice, its history, its heart. Targeting funeral processions. When someone we care about passes away, what's the one thing everyone needs? It's often peace, a quiet space to say goodbye, to remember them. A funeral procession, that line of people moving slowly, often represents that sacred time. But imagine that moment, that very human need for closure, being attacked. Targeting a funeral procession means deliberately striking people who are gathered to mourn, to honor a life lost. It's attacking grief itself. Here's the thing, even in ancient times, and across so many cultures, there's always been this unspoken rule. You respect the dead, and you respect those who grieve. It's a deeply rooted human understanding. We might fight, we might disagree, but there are certain lines you just don't cross. A funeral is one of those lines. It's seen as a place of vulnerability, where people are already hurting. To attack, it shows a complete lack of regard for shared humanity, for the quiet sorrow we all feel when someone is gone. It's like when someone is crying, really upset, and instead of offering comfort, someone yells at them or makes it worse. You know that feeling, that's just wrong feeling. A funeral procession is a public moment of deep sorrow. Attacking it feels like an attack on a person's deepest pain, a violation of a fragile, vulnerable time. It's like interrupting someone's last goodbyes, but with terrible violence. And that's why it matters. When a funeral is targeted, it's not just an attack on It's an attack on the spirit of a community, on the idea of peace, even in sadness. It tells us about a level of cruelty that seeks to break even the most fundamental human bonds. It reminds us how precious and fragile our shared sense of compassion can be, and how important it is to protect those moments when people are most vulnerable, when they simply need to grieve. The anguish of families searching. Have you ever lost something really important? Maybe a favorite toy, or even just your keys. You feel that knot in your stomach, right? That worry that builds until you find it. Now, imagine if it wasn't an object, but a person you love with all your heart, and they didn't just misplace themselves, they vanished because of war. This is a terrible reality for so many families caught in conflict. When war breaks out, people disappear. Soldiers don't come home. Civilians are taken from their homes or separated in the chaos. For those left behind, a different kind of struggle begins. The endless heart-wrenching search. They carry a silent ache, a question mark where a loved one should be. For thousands of years, in every war, families have faced this pain. It's a deep human need to know what happened. When someone dies, there is grief that can slowly heal. But when someone is simply gone, without a trace, that healing often can't even begin. Hope and fear battle each other, day after day, year after year. Think about a puzzle with a missing central piece. You can't complete the picture. You can't move on. That's a little like what these families go through. A vital part of their family and their own story is just not there. They keep searching because they know that person should be there. This search can stretch across decades, even generations. Families join groups. They share stories. They travel to distant places, always looking for a name, a photo, any small clue. This helps them feel like they're doing something, keeping the memory warm. This tireless search shows us something powerful, how strong love is, and how important it is to know the truth. It reminds us that even when answers are hard to find, the human spirit never truly gives up on those it holds dear. Denying medical help to wounded. Have you ever seen someone fall hard, really hurt themselves, and felt that urge to help? It's a natural human response, right? Now, imagine that deep pain on a battlefield. Picture a soldier or civilian, injured, perhaps bleeding, calling for help. Instead of receiving care, they are ignored. Worse, doctors are stopped from reaching them. This is what denying medical help to the wounded means as a war crime. It goes against a very old, simple idea. When someone is hurt and helpless, they stop being just an enemy. They become a person in desperate need. For centuries, across cultures, an unspoken rule existed. Once injured and out of the fight, they deserve humane treatment. They are no longer a threat. They are simply suffering. Think about getting a really bad scrape or bruise. It might sting and ache. Now imagine that pain is far worse. A broken bone or deep wound, and you are utterly alone. The idea that someone with the ability to offer comfort, stop bleeding, or prevent others from helping, feels deeply wrong. It's like seeing an injured animal and choosing to ignore it. This isn't about winning. It's a deliberate act that increases suffering, often causing preventable death. It strips dignity from someone at their weakest. It shows how easily compassion is erased when hatred takes over. Even in war, there must be a line of kindness we never cross. To deny help to the wounded is profound cruelty, reminding us how precious and fragile our shared humanity truly is. The crime of collective punishment. Have you ever felt that deep twist in your stomach when you're blamed for something you didn't do? Or maybe your whole class had to stay late because one person misbehaved. That feeling, but on a much larger and more terrible scale, is what we call collective punishment. It's when an entire group of people, a village, a community, sometimes even a whole city is punished for the actions of a few individuals. They might not even know. Here's the thing, we learn from a young age that you're responsible for your own choices. If you make a mistake, you face the consequences. But collective punishment flips that idea upside down. It says, because someone did something wrong, everyone will suffer. This isn't just unfair. It goes against the very idea of justice, of treating each person as an individual. It's also considered a violation of human rights in many international agreements. BECAUSE. People have known for a long time how truly wrong it is. Imagine you have a big group project. You worked really hard on your part, but one person in your group didn't do theirs. So, the teacher fails everyone in the group. You'd feel angry, helpless, right? Because your effort didn't matter. Now, stretch that feeling to people losing their homes, their food, or even their lives. not because of what they did, but because of what someone else did, someone they share a neighborhood with. This is the heavy shadow of collective punishment. This practice leaves a deep scar. It doesn't just hurt people physically, it crushes their spirit. It breaks trust and creates a lasting bitterness. Innocent people bear burdens that aren't theirs, and that's why it matters. It reminds us why it's so important to protect the idea that every single person deserves to be treated fairly, based on their own actions, not lumped in with others. It's about remembering that each life holds its own value, and each heart feels its own pain. Burning fields and crops. Have you ever felt that deep, empty ache of real hunger? Not just skipping lunch, but the kind where your stomach twists and all you can think about is food. Now imagine a whole town, a whole country, feeling that way, not for a day, but for months. This is the quiet, crushing weapon of burning fields and crops. It's a war crime that doesn't use guns on people directly. Instead, soldiers destroy the very things that keep a community alive. It's food. They march into farmlands where golden wheat once stood tall, or corn grew sweet. Then, they set it all on fire. Flames leap, smoke fills the sky, and soon, what was full of life becomes just ash and emptiness. This isn't only about losing a meal, it's about stealing the future. Think of planting a small seed. You water it, give it sun, and watch it grow. That plant is a promise, right? It promises food later. Burning fields is like destroying every tiny plant in a whole garden, not just for today, but for next season. It's a harsh way to break people's spirit, forcing them to give up because they can no longer feed their families. Armies have used this cruel method for centuries, from ancient times, when invaders scorched the earth, to more recent fights. The goal is always the same: starve the enemy into giving up. It hurts everyone, young and old, soldiers and regular people. It attacks our most basic need, the right to simply eat and survive. It makes you really think, doesn't it, how essential a harvest truly is. When we see fields of food, we think of life continuing, but when those fields burn, it's a sign of a deep wound, a pain that reaches every home, every family. It reminds us that war takes away not just quickly, but also slowly, painfully. The use of civilian shields. Have you ever imagined a situation where someone would deliberately put innocent people in harm's way just to protect themselves? It feels deeply unfair, doesn't it? This is the heart of what we call the use of civilian shields. It's when a fighting force deliberately places non-combatants, people like you, your family, or your friends in or around military targets. They do this so the enemy won't attack, fearing they'll hurt civilians. It turns ordinary homes, schools, and hospitals into part of a battlefield. Think about it like this. Imagine you're playing a game of dodgeball, but one team grabs smaller, younger kids who aren't even playing the game and holds them in front of themselves to avoid getting hit. That's not just cheating, it's a profound betrayal of trust. The rules of war, which have been developed over centuries, are very clear about protecting civilians. They state that those not fighting must be kept safe. Using them as shields is a direct violation of these basic human values. It's an act that rips away the thin line between soldiers and everyone else. This isn't about strategy, it's about stripping away human dignity. It forces an impossible choice onto the attacking side: either strike and risk harming those who have nothing to do with the conflict, or hold back and let the shielded fighters gain an advantage. Either way, the true victims are the civilians caught in the middle, their lives turned into pawns. It's a chilling reminder of how desperate and cruel conflict can become. It tells us that even in war, there are lines that should never, ever be crossed. The lives of innocent people should always be sacred, never a tool to be used. And that's a truth we all understand, deep in our hearts. Taking hostages, making demands. Imagine for a moment having your freedom suddenly taken away, not because you did anything wrong, but because someone wants something from someone else. Your life, your safety, hangs on a decision made by others, a decision that has nothing to do with you personally. This is a bit like what taking hostages means in a war. It's when people are captured and held, not as regular prisoners of war, but as bargaining chips. They become pawns, used to force another side to do something, or to stop doing something. It's a terrifying situation for everyone involved. Here's the thing: war has rules, even though it often feels like chaos. And one of the oldest, most basic rules is that you don't use innocent people to get what you want. It's like saying, if you don't give me X, then Y. An innocent person will suffer. This isn't just cruel, It's a war crime because it goes against the very idea of human dignity. It screams that some people can be treated as objects, as tools, instead of valuable individuals with their own lives and dreams. This practice has been condemned through history because it breaks a fundamental moral line. Think about a schoolyard bully. They might grab your friend's backpack and say, "I'll give it back if you do my homework." Your friend isn't involved in your homework, but they're being used to make you do something you don't want to do. It's a twisted kind of blackmail, but with human lives instead of backpacks. And that's why it matters so much. It's about forcing someone to make an impossible choice, where an innocent person pays the price. This act, taking a hostage, is a deep scar on humanity. It turns a person into an object, a tool to achieve a goal, rather than seeing them as a human being with their own rights and fears. It reminds us that true strength isn't about forcing others through fear. It's about respecting the worth of every single person, even in the darkest times. Because when we forget that, when we treat people as just things, when we strip them of their human value, we lose a piece of what makes us truly human, ourselves. And that's a cost too high for any demand. The slaughter of prisoners of war. Have you ever played a game where someone gives up, puts their hands up, and says, "I'm done"? What happens then? Usually, that person is safe. The rules of war have a similar idea. When a soldier surrenders, they become a prisoner of war. They stop fighting. They lay down their weapons. This means they are supposed to be safe, treated with basic human respect, and not harmed. But here's the thing. Sometimes, the hatred or anger runs so deep that these crucial rules are ignored. Imagine you're playing dodgeball, and someone is already out, sitting on the side, totally defenseless, and then someone on the other team keeps throwing balls at them, hard. That's a tiny echo of how deeply wrong it feels. A prisoner of war is no longer a threat. They depend on their captors for their very lives. For centuries, people have tried to set rules for war, not to make war good, because it isn't, but to make it less cruel. The core idea is that even your enemy is a human being. They have families and fears, just like anyone else. So, when prisoners are deliberately killed, that's a profound betrayal. It shatters a very old, very important understanding of what it means to be human. This act isn't just about taking lives. It's about shattering trust and crushing hope. It shows a complete disregard for any shared humanity. It leaves a lasting scar, not only on the victims, but on the conscience of everyone who learns of it. It forces us to ask tough questions about what happens when people are pushed to their limits, and why these rules, even in the darkest times, are so incredibly vital. It reminds us that real strength means upholding dignity, even when it's the hardest choice. Destroying homes for security. Have you ever really thought about what your home means to you? It's more than just walls and a roof, isn't it? It's where your favorite blanket is, where you've shared big laughs and quiet talks. It's where you feel safe, a place full of your memories, like chapters in your own story. It is the center of your world. But sometimes, during conflicts and wars, homes are destroyed on purpose, not by accident, but deliberately. The people doing it might claim it's for their own protection, for security. Maybe they say enemy fighters were hiding there, or that tearing down a neighborhood creates a safe zone for their side. Yet, often, innocent families pay a terrible price. Their homes, their safe places, just vanish. Don't imagine if someone decided to delete all your most treasured photos, or tear down your school, saying it was to keep everyone safer. It would feel so wrong, wouldn't it? Those places hold so much. They are part of who you are. Throughout history, people have needed a home. It's a fundamental part of being human, a safe haven, a place to belong. When that is taken, a huge piece of a person's life is ripped away. It leaves a deep, silent wound. When homes are intentionally destroyed, it doesn't just ruin buildings, it shatters trust and breaks spirits. It leaves an aching question: what kind of security truly needs to take away someone else's entire world? True safety, real peace, must come from building up, not tearing down. It should create a world where everyone feels secure, not one where security for some means the heartbreak and homelessness of others. Basic human dignity matters, even in war. The unseen wounds of war. When we think about war, our minds often go straight to the visible things: ruined buildings, loud explosions, or soldiers with bandages. But what about the wounds we can't see? The ones that don't bleed or leave a scar on the skin? These unseen wounds are just as real, and sometimes they hurt even longer than physical injuries. Imagine a soldier, or even a child, living through a war zone. They might see terrible things, hear constant gunfire, or lose people they love. Their bodies might be safe later, but their minds carry the echoes of that time. For a long time, people didn't really understand this. They might call it shell shock, or just think soldiers were weak. But here's the thing, it's not weakness. It's a deep injury to the spirit and the mind. It's called trauma, and this kind of wound can deeply affect someone for years, even a lifetime, shaping how they see the world. Think about a bad dream, one that wakes you up shaking and stays with you even after you're awake. Now imagine that feeling, but it happens all the time, not just in sleep. Or maybe, like when you accidentally touch a hot stove, your hand heals, but you remember the pain, and you're extra careful around stoves for a long time. People who experience war can feel jumpy, have trouble sleeping, or find it hard to feel safe, even years later. Their minds are still trying to protect them from the danger that isn't there anymore. And that's why it matters. The cost of war isn't just counted in bombs dropped or buildings destroyed. It's also in the quiet battles fought inside people's heads. Understanding these unseen wounds helps us see the full picture of suffering, and it reminds us how truly important peace is. It asks us to look deeper, with kindness, at those who have lived through the unthinkable. The world that didn't listen. Have you ever seen something small, a tiny problem, and just hoped it would go away? But instead, it grew bigger and bigger, until it was too late to fix ice. That's kind of what happened with some of the worst events in history. Before the world shattered, there were often whispers, small cracks in the peace, warning signs that screamed danger, but were somehow overlooked. Here's the thing, terrible war crimes don't usually just happen overnight. They often start with hateful words, with people being treated as less important, or with small acts of unfairness that nobody stops. It's like a tiny ember that, if ignored, can grow into a raging wildfire. The world, back then, sometimes just didn't want to see the smoke, or maybe it saw it, but didn't believe a fire could truly start. It's a hard truth, but history shows us this pattern again and again. Sometimes, people are too busy with their own lives. Sometimes, they're scared to speak up, and sometimes, they just can't imagine something truly awful could happen, even when it's right in front of them. Think about it like a group project. If one person starts doing less work, and no one says anything, then another person might slack off. And pretty soon, the whole project is a mess. It needs someone to notice the first little problem and speak up. Many times, the world knew. Reports came out. People fled, telling stories of fear. But big countries and powerful leaders often chose to look the other way. They were worried about their own problems, or they didn't want to get involved. So here's what happened. The whispers grew into shouts, and the shouts turned into the devastating silence of millions, who suffered because no one truly listened. It leaves us with a quiet question, doesn't it? What does it mean for us today? It means we have to pay attention. It means we have to listen when people are hurting, even if it's just a whisper, because sometimes listening is the bravest thing we can do. Targeting people who surrendered. Imagine a game where someone throws down their cards, says, "I give up," and then the other player just keeps hitting them with the deck. Or a playground fight where one kid puts their hands up and the other keeps punching. It feels fundamentally wrong, doesn't it? In war, there's a similar, sacred moment, surrender. It's when soldiers, often exhausted and out of options, lay down their weapons. They raise a white flag, or just signal they can no longer fight. This act is a desperate plea for mercy, a silent promise to stop resisting, in exchange for their lives. For centuries, even in the most brutal conflicts, there has been an understanding, a quiet rule that when someone surrenders, they are no longer an enemy. They become a prisoner, someone to be taken captive, cared for, and eventually released if possible. It's not about kindness, but about a shared humanity, a recognition that even in war, some lines should never be crossed. This rule exists to prevent endless, senseless slaughter. It's a tiny thread of hope that even the most terrible situations have boundaries. Think about it like this. If you're playing a video game and an opponent disconnects, you don't keep shooting at their frozen character. It's not fair, and it's not how decent people behave. When soldiers surrender, they are disconnecting from the fight. Attacking them then isn't bravery. It's a profound betrayal of trust, not just for the individuals, but for the very idea that there can be any honor or rules in war. It strips away the last glimmer of dignity from the battlefield. This act makes war even more terrifying because it says that even mercy can be denied. It leaves a deep scar, making it harder for anyone to trust that rules will be followed, or that their lives have any value beyond the fight. It's a moment that asks us to think about what true humanity means, even in its darkest hours. The ruin of ancient cities. Have you ever walked through an old, quiet place? Maybe a historic home, or a towering cathedral that has stood for centuries. There's a certain feeling you get, isn't there? Like you're touching history itself, walking on the same ground where countless lives unfolded. Now, imagine if someone intentionally destroyed such a place. Not by accident in a battle, but on purpose, with a plan, during a war. That deliberate erasing of heritage, the intentional ruin of ancient cities and cultural sites, is a war crime. It's about so much more than just buildings and old stones. These places are like massive open-air libraries. Instead of books, they hold stories written in bricks, carvings, and silent courtyards. They whisper tales of who we were, how we lived, what we created, and what we believed. When an ancient temple is bombed, or an old marketplace shelled, it's not just a structure that falls. It's a piece of our shared human story, a page ripped out of history that can never be put back. Think about your favorite old photo album. It has pictures of your family, your memories. If someone decided to burn it, just because they didn't like your family, how would that feel? It would hurt, right? Those pictures are proof of who you are and where you come from. Ancient cities and their artifacts are like that, but for all of us, for all of humanity, they are living proof of our collective journey, our art, our ideas, our very beginnings. When they are ruined on purpose, it's an attack on everyone's history. It leaves a hollow, empty space where beauty and wisdom once stood. It tells future generations that the past didn't matter, that culture and learning can simply be wiped away. But here's the thing, it does matter, profoundly. We must remember why, so we can protect what's left and understand the true, heartbreaking cost. Because once these ancient echoes are silenced, they are gone forever, and a part of us goes with them. People forced from their land. What if everything you knew, every street, every tree, every memory held within the walls of your home, was suddenly not yours anymore? Imagine being told, not gently, but with a harsh, urgent command, that you had to leave, not for a short vacation, but forever. This is what it means when people are forced from their land. It's a war crime that rips away more than just buildings. It tears at the very soul of a community and the heart of individuals. Here's the thing. Throughout history, war means people lose more than just battles. They lose their homes. When violence erupts, families are pushed out by soldiers or the sheer terror. Their villages become too dangerous, sometimes destroyed, or their land is simply taken by force. It's not about choosing to move, it's about having no choice. This isn't just a physical address, it's about losing the feeling of belonging, the comfort of knowing where you are from, and the shared story is tied to that place. Think about your favorite spot in your house, maybe your bedroom that feels just like yours. It holds so many personal memories, right? It makes you feel safe, connected to your everyday life. Now imagine someone takes that from you forever. That feeling of deep, unexpected loss, but amplified a million times, is what happens when a whole family is uprooted. It's like a mighty tree being pulled from the ground. Its roots are exposed, damaged. It struggles immensely to find new soil. The tree might survive, but it will never be the same. This act of making people refugees in their own country or forcing them into another land leaves a deep wound that can take generations to heal. It's a violation of human dignity. It tells people they don't matter, that their home doesn't matter. And that's why it matters to understand this, because everyone deserves a safe place to call home, a place where their roots can grow deep and strong, where their history is honored, not erased. When that fundamental human need is stolen, the scar remains, a quiet testament to a profound injustice. The lies told to soldiers. Have you ever been told something that wasn't completely true? Maybe a small promise from a friend that never happened. Now, imagine that feeling in a war. Soldiers are sometimes sent into battle with only part of the story. They're told things not entirely honest, or even false. This isn't just about hiding secrets from the enemy. It's about leaders hiding the painful truth from their own soldiers. From ancient times to today, leaders have misled. They want soldiers to believe in their cause, to fight bravely. So, they paint a simpler, more heroic picture than reality. They might say war will be short, easy, or the enemy purely evil. This builds morale, keeping soldiers fighting, even when real reasons are unclear or sacrifice is huge. It controls the story, getting them to act as desired. Imagine a coach telling a team, "This next play is easy. We've got it." But on the field, it's tough. You face a stronger opponent. The coach tried to boost confidence, but not sharing the full challenge made things harder when reality hit. In war, the stakes are far higher than a game. These untruths crush a spirit. Soldiers fight, bleed, and sometimes die for causes they discover were built on shaky ground. They might realize the enemy wasn't so simple, or reasons for fighting less noble. This betrayal, this feeling of being used, lingers long after guns fall silent. It leaves deep scars, not just physical, but in the heart and mind. It makes us wonder, how much truth do we need before we act? What does it truly cost when truth is held back? This reminds us that finding the full story, asking questions, is always important. Because truth, even difficult, helps us understand, heal, and make better choices in the future, for ourselves and for the world. The terror of death squads. Have you ever felt a deep chill? Not from cold, but from a creeping fear, the kind that makes the hairs on your arms stand up when you don't even know why. That's a little bit like the fear death squads create. These aren't regular armies fighting on a battlefield. Here's the thing about death squads. They are groups, often secret, who kidnap and kill people they see as enemies of the state, or people who just disagree with the powerful. Often, the government knows about them, or even quietly supports them, pretending not to. They don't wear uniforms that show who they are. They operate in the shadows, sometimes at night, taking people from their homes. The goal isn't just to kill. It's to spread a terror so deep that nobody dares to speak up or challenge those in charge. Think about it like this. Imagine your school, but instead of clear rules and known consequences, there's a secret group of bullies. They don't fight out in the open. Instead, they mess with people's lockers, break things, or leave scary notes, and no one ever knows who did it. So, everyone walks around scared, always looking over their shoulder, wondering if they're next. That constant worry, that heavy feeling, makes it hard for anyone to feel safe or free. This kind of fear is a weapon, maybe even more powerful than bullets, because it attacks hope. When people live in constant fear of a hidden threat, they stop trusting each other. They stop speaking their minds. The light of free thought and open conversation dims, and a heavy silence takes its place. It's a tragic way for a society to lose its voice, piece by piece, not in a loud battle, but in a quiet, chilling surrender to the unknown. Destroying water supplies, waking up one morning, feeling truly thirsty, and reaching for a glass of water. But what if there was none? Not just in your house, but nowhere at all. In wars, people sometimes attack something even more basic than food, precious water. They might bomb reservoirs, poison wells, or simply break vital pipes. This isn't just about making people uncomfortable. It's about deliberately taking away life itself. Throughout history, water has always been seen as sacred. It's absolutely essential for crops, for proper hygiene, and for simply staying alive. Ancient laws, even thousands of years ago, understood that cutting off water was an act of extreme cruelty. It targets everyone, young and old, soldiers and civilians alike. It's a silent weapon, slow and terribly painful. Think about your school's drinking fountains, or the water that comes out of your tap at home. We just expect it to be there, clean and safe. Now, imagine if someone purposely broke those pipes, or dumped something dangerous into the city's water tower. Suddenly, every sip becomes a risk, every shower impossible. It causes panic, sickness, and deep, deep fear. It strips away dignity. To deliberately destroy water, to deny it to people, feels like an attack on the very idea of life. It's a choice that asks us to think about what it means to be human, and how far desperation can push people to inflict suffering. It reminds us how precious and fragile our basic needs truly are, and why protecting them, even in the worst times, is a measure of our shared humanity. When truth was the first victim, what if the first thing lost in any big fight isn't a person, but something even more basic? The truth. This idea, that truth was the first victim, means that even before the first shot is fired, something precious is already broken. In times of conflict, the truth is often the first thing to be attacked, twisted, and sometimes completely buried. For centuries, leaders have known this. To get people to fight, or to hate an enemy, they often tell stories. These aren't just little white lies. They are carefully crafted messages, sometimes called propaganda. They are designed to stir up strong feelings, to make one group look entirely good and the other entirely bad. It's a powerful tool, shaping minds before any physical harm is done. Imagine a magician guiding your eyes to one hand while the real trick happens in the other. Propaganda works like that, distracting us from the full picture, or from what's truly happening. It's like when a rumor starts at school. Someone tells a story that isn't true about another student. Suddenly, people believe it, and it changes how they see that person. Even if the rumor is later proven false, the damage is already done. People still remember the bad feelings it created. In war, the stakes are much, much higher. These false stories can lead entire populations to support actions they might otherwise find horrific. They can make violence seem necessary, even noble, and that's why it matters so much. When we learn about war, we have to look past the easy stories. We have to search for the real facts, even the uncomfortable ones. Because once the truth is silenced, it becomes easier for terrible things to happen. Protecting the truth, seeking it out even when it's messy, is a powerful act. It's how we truly learn and maybe, just maybe, prevent history's darkest chapters from repeating. The abuse of power in occupation. Have you ever thought about what happens when one powerful group takes over another? Imagine an army marches into a country and takes charge. They are the occupiers. When they use that control to hurt people, steal things, or make unfair rules, that's the abuse of power in an occupation. It's about someone having all the say, and using it to take away basic rights and dignity. This has happened often in history. Armies conquered lands. Rulers then decided everything for the people there. Sometimes, they were fair, but often, they thought winning meant they could do anything. Yet, even long ago, people knew that wasn't right. They felt that even after a win, people deserved respect. Later, global rules like the Geneva Conventions wrote these ideas down. They said occupied people must be protected, even in war. It's about remembering everyone is human, no matter who is in charge. Think about your school. Maybe an older, stronger student takes charge of the shared art supplies. They might tell other kids they can only use crayons if they do the older student's homework. Or they might take all the best markers and hide them, even if everyone is supposed to share. That's using power in a way that's just not fair. It makes others feel small and without a voice. It's not just about taking things, it's about making someone feel less important. It's a tough idea to think about, how power can go wrong. But here's the thing. Understanding this helps us protect people's basic rights, especially those who are weak. Because at its heart, the abuse of power in an occupation is about one group taking away another's right to safety, freedom, and respect. It's a quiet reminder of how easy things can go wrong, and why we need to make sure power helps people instead of hurting them. The story of the forgotten camps. Have you ever lost something important, only to realize much later you'd completely forgotten about it? Maybe a special drawing, or a favorite old book. It's like it vanished, not just from your sight, but from your mind. That feeling of something important fading away is a little like the story of the forgotten camps. When we talk about war crimes, we often think of big, well-known places and terrible events. But there are also stories of places time has quietly swallowed. These were not always the giant, infamous camps. Sometimes, they were smaller, hidden spots, places where people were held captive, or made to work, or suffered, far from the world's eyes. After the war, as the world tried to heal, many of these spots were just left behind. Think of it like an old, overgrown path in the woods. Once, many people walked on it, leaving clear footprints. Life happened there. But over years, nobody uses it. Plants grow tall, leaves pile up, and soon, the path is almost impossible to see. You wouldn't even know it was there unless someone told you. That's what happened to some of these camps. They existed, people suffered, but then the world moved on, and the physical traces and sometimes even the memories got covered over. This isn't about people trying to forget. It's often about the chaos of war and how hard it is to remember every single detail. But when we forget these places, we risk forgetting the people who were there. We miss a chance to understand the full cost of conflict, and that's why remembering, even the forgotten parts, is so important. It helps us see the full picture and truly understand the weight of these moments, so we can learn from them. It makes sure their silence isn't a final end. Silence in the face of evil. Have you ever seen something happen that you knew was wrong, deep down, but you didn't say a word? Maybe it was small, like someone being unfair to a friend. That feeling of staying quiet, that moment, is what we call silence in the face of evil. It's not about doing bad things yourself. Instead, it's about standing by, watching, and letting awful things unfold without stepping in. History teaches us a tough lesson. Many terrible war crimes, much human suffering, didn't happen in secret. Often, people saw them, knew they were wrong, but chose to be quiet. They might have been scared or felt powerless. But here's the thing, when good people stay silent, bad things often get bigger. It's like a quiet storm. If no one speaks up, the storm gets to rage. Think about this. Imagine you're with friends, and someone drops their books. Everyone sees it, but no one moves to help. Each person might think, someone else will do it, and then, no one does. That's a simple version of the bystander effect. In much more serious situations, like during times of war and terrible injustice, this effect can have devastating outcomes. When people ignore cruelty, it allows the cruelty to continue, and that's why it matters so much. Our silence, even a small choice, is powerful. It can make a difference. It can show those doing wrong that it's okay, or it can make those suffering feel alone. So, even when it's hard, finding your voice and speaking up against injustice is one of the bravest things you can do. It's a way to show you care, that you see the pain, and that you believe in a world where good can win. Your voice, even just one, can echo far more than you think. The cost of merciless warfare. Have you ever truly stopped to consider the hidden costs of war, beyond just soldiers and battlefields? Merciless warfare isn't just about armies clashing. It's when fighting loses all its limits, when the idea of basic human decency vanishes. This means leaders or soldiers decide that anything goes, that civilians, children, hospitals, and homes are all just targets. It's war without a conscience, a brutal act where the rules of humanity are thrown away, leading to unimaginable suffering. Even very old societies, long before modern laws, often had unspoken rules for how to fight. They knew some things were simply wrong, like not harming messengers or sparing the defeated. These early codes existed because people understood that totally unrestrained fighting wouldn't just conquer an enemy, it would rip apart the very fabric of life, shattering societies and leaving deep, painful wounds that would last for many generations. The aim was to win, yes, but not to destroy everything that makes us human. Think about a small cut on your hand. If you ignore it, if you keep hurting it, the wound gets worse. It might get infected, heal slowly, or leave a lasting scar that aches when the weather changes. Merciless warfare is like that, but on a massive scale. It doesn't just hurt the people directly involved, it damages the entire community, the land, and even the future. It's like a wildfire that burns everything: ancient trees, young saplings, homes, or just the soil itself. Everything is scorched, and it takes an impossibly long time for life to truly grow back the same way. So, the real cost isn't only in bodies lost or buildings crumbled. It's the slow, painful decay of trust, the burning away of hope, and the deep fear that lingers in people's hearts for decades. It's a profound wound to our collective spirit, a reminder that when humanity chooses to abandon all mercy, the damage stretches far beyond any battlefield. It changes the world, often for the worse, showing us why compassion and restraint are always needed, even in the darkest times. When culture itself was attacked, have you ever thought about what makes you, you? Not just your face or your name, but the stories your family tells, the songs you love, the history of your town. Imagine someone trying to erase all of that. That's what happens when culture itself is attacked during war. It's not just about hurting people physically. It's about trying to destroy what gives a group of people their identity, their soul. When armies burn books, smash ancient statues, or tear down historic buildings, they're trying to wipe away memories and shared history. They want to make it seem like those people never mattered, or that their way of life was wrong. Throughout history, people have understood that culture holds immense power. It connects generations. It teaches us about courage, about beauty, about our mistakes. So, when someone wants to truly conquer a people, they often go after their cultural treasures. They want to break the spirit, not just the body. They want to silence the old songs and stop the new stories from ever being told. This can hurt deeply. It's a quiet kind of violence, but it leaves deep scars. Think about your school's yearbook. It has pictures, names, memories from different years. It tells the story of your school, the people who walked its halls, Now, imagine someone coming in and burning every single copy. All those faces, all those moments, gone. It wouldn't just be about missing a book. It would be about losing a piece of your shared past, a big part of what makes your school special. That's a bit like what happens when a whole community's history, its art, its traditions are targeted. It makes you wonder, doesn't it? What happens to people when their stories are taken away? What happens when their most cherished things are turned to dust? Here's the thing. It's a reminder that truly winning a war isn't just about battles. It's also about what survives afterwards. It's about the spirit, the resilience, and the enduring power of human connection, even when everything seems lost. Because even when objects are destroyed, the spirit of a culture can live on in the hearts of its people, waiting to be rebuilt. Forcing people to dig their own graves, can you imagine a moment so terrible, so completely without hope, that you are made to prepare for your own end? This is what it means to be forced to dig your own grave. It is a war crime that almost breaks the mind, something designed to crush a human spirit before life even leaves the body. It's not just about violence, though that is there too. It's about stripping away every last bit of human dignity, every last choice, in the most brutal way possible. This act doesn't just take a life, it tries to erase the meaning of that life. It says, your existence has no worth, not even the worth of a proper burial arranged by others. This practice has been used in many dark chapters of history, a chilling reminder of how far human cruelty can go. It's a complete and total disrespect for another person, pushing them past fear into utter despair. Here's the thing, when you force someone to dig their own grave, you're making them participate in their own undoing. Think about it like this. Imagine you were told to help build the fence around your own yard, knowing that once it was built, you could never leave that yard again. You would be working against your own freedom. This is like that, but the fence is the edge of your life, and you're digging the earth that will cover you. It's a profound betrayal, not just by an enemy, but by the very idea of what it means to be human. This act targets the mind as much as the body. It tries to steal hope, to steal control, to leave someone feeling utterly powerless. When we learn about such cruelty, it helps us understand just how precious human dignity truly is. It makes us see why it's so important to protect the idea that every life matters. Always. Because when that idea is lost, the world becomes a very dark and terrifying place. Innocent lives caught in the crossfire. Imagine living your everyday life, just going to school or helping at home. And then, without warning, everything changes because of a fight that isn't even yours. This is what it means to be caught in the crossfire. It's when people not involved in the battle, not soldiers, suddenly get caught in the path of violence. They are civilians, neighbors, children, parents, grandparents, just trying to live, but a conflict breaks out, and they are trapped in the middle. Here's the thing, throughout history, people have tried to set rules for war. One old idea is to protect people who aren't fighting. It's about knowing the difference between soldiers and civilians. But sometimes, war doesn't care about these rules. Bombs don't always pick sides, and bullets don't ask for identification. So, homes become battlefields, and daily routines become a struggle. Think about it like this. Picture two friends, having a loud argument in the school hallway. You're just walking by, minding your own business. Suddenly, one of them pushes the other, and you're accidentally shoved or tripped as they struggle. You weren't part of their fight, didn't choose a side, but still felt the impact. In war, that impact can be losing your home, family, or even your life. It's not a shove, it's a devastating loss. And that's why it matters. Remembering these innocent lives helps us understand the heartbreaking cost of war. It's a reminder that every number we hear represents a person with dreams, fears, a story cut short. Their suffering teaches us about compassion and the value of peace. It makes us think about what it truly means to protect every human life, especially the most vulnerable ones. Innocent lives caught in the crossfire. Imagine living your everyday life, just going to school or helping at home. And then, without warning, everything changes because of a fight that isn't even yours. This is what it means to be caught in the crossfire. It's when people not involved in the battle, not soldiers, suddenly get caught in the path of violence. They are civilians, neighbors, children, parents, grandparents, just trying to live, but a conflict breaks out, and they are trapped in the middle. Here's the thing, throughout history, people have tried to set rules for war. One old idea is to protect people who aren't fighting. It's about knowing the difference between soldiers and civilians. But sometimes, war doesn't care about these rules. Bombs don't always pick sides, and bullets don't ask for identification. So, homes become battlefields, and daily routines become a struggle. Think about it like this. Picture two friends having a loud argument in the school hallway. You're just walking by, minding your own business. Suddenly, one of them pushes the other, and you're accidentally shoved or tripped as they struggle. You weren't part of their fight, didn't choose a side, but still felt the impact. In war, that impact can be losing your home, family, or even your life. It's not a shove, it's a devastating loss. And that's why it matters. Remembering these innocent lives helps us understand the heartbreaking cost of war. It's a reminder that every number we hear represents a person with dreams, fears, a story cut short. Their suffering teaches us about compassion and the value of peace. It makes us think about what it truly means to protect every human life, especially the most vulnerable ones. The world's shared shame. Have you ever felt a heavy feeling, a sort of sadness, even for something you didn't do yourself? Like a knot in your stomach, wishing you could have changed a bad outcome you witnessed. Here's the thing. War crimes aren't just about the terrible acts a few individuals commit. They leave a deeper mark, a shadow that touches all of us. This is what we call the world's shared shame. It's the quiet understanding that when humanity does something truly awful, when innocent people suffer unimaginable horrors, we all bear a tiny part of that burden. Not that we are personally guilty, but that we, as a collective human family, failed to prevent it. History shows us too many times where people looked away, or didn't speak up, or simply weren't strong enough to stop the cruelty unfolding. And that's why it matters so much. Think about a science experiment in class. If one group member messes up a crucial step, the whole project might fail, and the whole group feels that disappointment. Even if you did your part perfectly, you feel the weight of the shared failure. In a much bigger, more painful way, war crimes are like that for humanity. When one part of our world causes so much pain, we all feel the echo of that suffering, the shame that we couldn't protect each other better. This shared shame isn't meant to make us feel guilty for things we couldn't control. Instead, it's a powerful lesson. It tells us we must remember these dark times. We must learn from them. It asks us to look closely at our world and decide what kind of future we want to build. One where we stand together, speak out, and try to make sure such terrible things never happen again. It's a quiet promise to do better. Breaking international laws. Have you ever thought about the rules that govern not just our games or schools, but the entire world? It's a big idea, right? International laws are kind of like a global agreement, a set of promises countries make to each other. These rules are put in place to make sure everyone, even during tough times like war, is treated with a basic human decency. They are there to protect the innocent, limit suffering, and keep some sense of order when chaos tries to take over. For a very long time, people have asked, what's fair in war? Is anything off? After too many terrible wars, where countless civilians suffered, the world decided it needed clearer answers. So, groups of nations came together to write down these shared understandings. Think of the Geneva Conventions. They're famous examples of these rules. They say things like, you can't target hospitals, or you must treat prisoners humanely. These aren't just suggestions. They are serious commitments designed to save lives and prevent unimaginable pain. Here's the thing. Imagining a sports match. If you're playing soccer, there are clear rules about what you can and can't do. You can't just trip someone because you want the ball, even if you really, really want to win. If you break those rules, there are consequences, like a penalty or getting kicked out. Breaking those rules isn't just about losing the game. It's about ruining the spirit of fair play for everyone. International laws work in a similar way, but the stakes are incredibly higher. When a country breaks these global rules, it's not just a penalty. It shatters trust, harms real people, and damages the very idea that humanity can agree on what's right or wrong, even in conflict. So, when we talk about breaking international laws, we're talking about more than just a legal problem. It's about breaking a fundamental promise made between nations, a deep wound to our shared hope that even in war, there are lines we simply do not cross. It's a sad reminder of how fragile that shared humanity can be. Orders that led to atrocities. Have you ever wondered how good people can end up doing terrible things? It's a hard question, but one we need to face. Often, the worst acts in history weren't from single evil individuals. They came from groups of people, sometimes soldiers, following orders. This idea of just following orders has been used to excuse truly shocking events. But here is the thing. An order, no matter who gives it, doesn't make a wrong thing right. Imagine you're part of a team project. Someone in charge suggests something that feels unfair or wrong, like cheating. Even if they're the leader and everyone else seems okay, your gut tells you no. It's tough to speak up, right? This feeling, but much, much bigger, is what some soldiers faced. They were told to do things that went against every decent human feeling. Thinkers have studied this for a long time. Psychologists have shown how easily people obey authority, especially when someone powerful tells them what to do. It's like personal judgment gets quiet. But even with that strong pressure, even with fear, a tiny bit of choice always remains. That tiny space is where our true selves, our humanity, lives. So, how do we stop ourselves from being pulled into such darkness? It begins with thinking for ourselves. It means listening to that quiet voice inside that asks, is this truly okay? It means understanding that sometimes being brave isn't about obeying. It's about questioning, about speaking up, even when it's scary. Our future depends on each of us holding on to that light of personal choice, even when silence feels easier. The power of witness testimony. Have you ever seen something happen? Something so important you just knew you had to tell someone? Maybe it was a small unfairness, or perhaps something truly shocking. That powerful feeling, that need to share what you saw or heard, is at the very heart of witness testimony. When terrible things happen, especially awful war crimes, these personal stories become incredibly important. For thousands of years, people have understood that finding the truth often depends on those who are actually there. Think about ancient courts, or even just resolving disagreements in a small community. The person who saw it, the one who heard it, held the key. Their words could change everything. It's how societies try to make sure justice is sought, and that those who suffer are not forgotten. These witnesses, they carry heavy memories. Their words are not just facts, they are echoes of pain, fear, and sometimes incredible courage. It takes immense bravery to speak up, especially when powerful people might want to silence you. Imagine you're at a school assembly, and something unexpected happens on stage that others missed. Maybe a prop falls, or someone says something truly unfair. You saw it clearly. Later, when questions are asked, your honest account, your clear memory of what you saw, helps everyone understand the truth. If several people like you come forward, each telling their part, the full picture becomes undeniable. That shared experience, those multiple voices, make the truth strong and clear. So, witness testimony is more than just telling a story. It's about brave people stepping forward, sometimes at great risk, to make sure the world knows what happened. It's about giving a voice to those silenced by violence, about ensuring that cruelty cannot hide in the shadows forever. Their words become a permanent record, a shining beacon against forgetting, and a powerful, deeply human call for justice. It reminds us that truth, even when buried, can always find a way to light up the darkness. When civilians were erased, have you ever stopped to think about what it means for someone to just disappear? Not just leave, but to be made to vanish, as if they never existed. In war, a horror goes beyond the battlefield. It's when ordinary people, like your neighbors or family, are deliberately targeted. This isn't accidental crossfire. This is about making their very existence cease, removing them from the world and from history. We call it erasing civilians. For centuries, even in brutal conflicts, there was a clear line. Soldiers fought soldiers. Civilians, those not carrying weapons, living everyday lives, were meant to be safe. They were supposed to be protected. But sometimes, that line isn't just crossed, it's completely wiped out. Here's the thing. When this happens, it's a war crime, a deep betrayal of humanity. It means innocent lives are treated as unimportant, as mere obstacles. Imagine you're building a puzzle. Every single piece is important, right? Each one has its own shape and place. Now, picture someone intentionally taking out a whole section of pieces, crushing them, and then trying to pretend they were never part of the picture. The puzzle is incomplete, forever damaged. Everyone knows something vital is missing, even if they can't see the individual pieces anymore. That silent, missing gap is like the space left when civilians are erased, and that's why it matters. The quiet horror isn't just about lost lives, but about the attempt to silence stories, to remove memory. It leaves a wound much deeper than physical destruction. It shows us how fragile peace can be. It's important to remember every single person, every single story, even those others tried to make disappear. Every life holds value, and no one should ever be made into nothing. The unspoken suffering of women. Have you ever thought about the quiet stories of war? Not the loud booms and big battles, but the silent struggles that echo long after the fighting stops. When we talk about war crimes, we often focus on the direct violence, but there's a deeper, often hidden pain, especially for women. Their suffering in wartime is often unseen, unrecorded, and deeply personal. Imagine your entire world suddenly turning upside down. Your home is gone, your daily routines vanish, and the people you love might be scattered or lost. For women, this can mean facing unique dangers and burdens. They might lose their sense of safety, their ability to work, or even the basic freedom to move around without fear. It's not just about what war takes from them physically, but what it does to their spirit, their dignity, and their choices. For a long time, the struggles of women in conflict were barely mentioned in history books. They were just seen as a sad but expected part of war. But here's the thing. War doesn't just happen on a battlefield. It tears apart communities, and women often become the anchors, trying to hold families together, seeking food, and protecting children in incredibly dangerous situations. This constant effort, this deep worry, it builds up. Think about a small crack in a wall. It might not seem like a big deal at first, but over time, with constant pressure, that crack can weaken the whole structure, even if no one is directly hitting it. That's a bit like the invisible stress and fear many women carry during war. It's a weight that presses down daily, shaping their lives in ways we can barely imagine. So, when we learn about the impact of war, it's vital to listen for these quiet stories too. The courage of women is often found not in fighting battles, but in their incredible strength to survive, to adapt, and to keep hope alive for their families. Their experiences remind us that the true cost of conflict goes far beyond the battlefield. It lives in the hearts and memories of those who endure, often silently, often unseen. The damage to the environment in war. Have you ever thought about what else gets hurt when wars happen, beyond the people? It's easy to focus on cities crumbling or families being displaced, but wars also wage a terrible battle against the very earth beneath our feet. Imagine vast forests, ancient and full of life, suddenly burned to ashes, or crystal clear rivers, essential for life, becoming poisoned with chemicals and debris. This isn't just a side effect, it's a profound injury to our shared home. From the earliest battles, soldiers used to burn fields so the enemy couldn't eat. But today, the scale of environmental destruction is far, far greater. Modern warfare uses bombs that flatten entire landscapes, leaving craters and barren land. Tanks churn up soil, making it impossible for plants to grow. Chemical weapons, even if not aimed at nature, seep into the ground and water, staying there for generations. It's like when you accidentally spill something really toxic on your favorite plant. It doesn't just look bad, it slowly kills the plant from the inside out, and the soil around it might never be the same. Think about a small cut on your arm. It heals, right, but if that cut gets infected, or if you keep cutting it in the same spot, it leaves a much deeper scar, maybe even permanent damage. The earth is like that. It has an incredible ability to heal, to regrow and recover. But the wounds of war, especially modern war, are often so deep, so widespread, and so toxic, that they leave scars that might never truly fade. Generations might pass before a forest stands tall again. Rivers might carry poison for decades. It's a quiet suffering, but it's happening all the same. And it affects everyone, because we all depend on a healthy planet to breathe, to eat, and to live. We often talk about rebuilding cities after war, but who talks about rebuilding the planet? It's a reminder that peace isn't just about people. It's about making sure the whole world can heal. The horror of incendiary bombs. Have you ever felt the intense heat from a bonfire, or watched a small flame quickly grow? Now, try to imagine that heat, that fire, but on a scale so huge it could swallow an entire city. That's a bit like understanding incendiary bombs. These weren't bombs that just went boom. Instead, they were designed to create widespread, unstoppable fire. They were filled with special chemicals that burn incredibly hot, often sticking to everything they touch. This isn't just a quick flash. This fire keeps going, melting metal, turning buildings to ash, and making the very air too hot to breathe. During wars, especially World War II, these bombs were dropped on cities to cause firestorms. Here's the thing about a firestorm. When many fires start at once, they pull all the air inwards, This creates a massive, terrifying superfire, like a giant vacuum, sucking the oxygen away. People caught in these events didn't just burn, many suffocated because there was no air left. If you've ever accidentally touched a hot oven rack for just a second, you know that sharp, shocking pain. Now, picture that pain, but it doesn't stop. It's everywhere, relentless. Incendiary bombs used materials like thermite or napalm. These are like sticky, burning jellies that latch onto surfaces and can even keep burning through water. It's a truly horrifying thought, that feeling of total helplessness. The goal was often to break a city's spirit, to make people lose all hope. It's a deeply cruel strategy, turning homes into furnaces and peaceful lives into ruin. Even after the flames died down, the memory of that extreme heat, the suffocating smoke, and the utter emptiness haunted people for generations. It makes you think deeply about the choices that lead to such widespread heartbreak, and the profound, invisible scars these events leave on the world. Why we must remember. Have you ever wondered why we spend so much time looking at the past? Not just old family photos, but big, tough parts of history too. It's not because we want to live in sadness. It's for a much deeper reason. Here's the thing. Remembering war crimes, the awful things humans have done, isn't about blaming. It's about learning. It's seeing how easily things can go wrong when kindness and understanding are lost. We look back at these moments to understand the path that led to such darkness. Understanding that path helps us avoid walking down it again. History isn't just dates and names. It's like a giant instruction manual for humanity. Every page tells us what worked, what failed, and what caused pain. Societies keep records, good and bad. This isn't just for textbooks. It's so we can build a future that is different, a future that is better. If we forget the lessons of the past, we risk making the same terrible mistakes. It's a heavy thought, but it's also a powerful one. Think about this. Touch a hot stove, and your brain remembers that burning feeling. You don't forget it the next day. That memory protects you. It stops you from touching something hot again without thinking. Remembering war crimes works in a similar way, but on a much bigger scale. It's a collective memory of pain and horror that should make us all more careful, more thoughtful, more determined to protect each other. So, we remember not to carry a burden, but to carry a promise that we will stand up for peace, a promise that we will speak out against cruelty, a promise that we will try to understand each other, even when it's hard. Remembering helps us build a world where such acts belong only to the past, and that's why it matters so much. Lessons learned, not always kept. Why do people keep making the same mistakes, even when the lessons are staring them right in the face? It's a question that echoes through history, sometimes quietly, sometimes with a roar. We've seen the terrible outcomes, felt the deep sorrow, and promised ourselves, never again. But here's the thing, knowing something happened and truly holding onto its lesson are two different challenges. Think about it like this. History is a library full of warnings. Each war crime, each act of cruelty we've talked about, is a book, detailing a disaster, explaining exactly why it went wrong and how much pain it caused. We read these books, we understand them, we agree we should never repeat those stories, and for a while, we remember. We set up rules, we try to build a better world, we hope. But then time passes, new problems come up. Fear can start to creep in, or the desire for power. The memory of the pain, the raw feeling of it, can fade a little, like an old photograph losing its color. The details might still be there, but the emotional punch that really taught us a lesson can get softer. It's not that we forget the facts, but we might forget the feeling that came with them, the deep understanding of why those facts matter so much. It's a bit like when you touch a hot stove by accident. You instantly learn not to do that again, right? The burn is a sharp, clear lesson. But imagine if that memory of the pain wasn't quite so strong after a few years. You'd still know, logically, stove is hot. But if you didn't feel that quick, sharp memory of the burn, you might be tempted to be careless again, to test the edge, just to see dot. And that's the hardest part. The world keeps moving. New choices appear. And sometimes, when faced with those choices, people don't always remember the full weight of the lessons learned from the past. It takes a constant, quiet effort to hold on to those feelings, those profound truths about humanity and kindness, even when it's hard. It's a challenge we all share, to keep the lessons alive in our hearts, not just in history books. The hope for a better tomorrow. After hearing about so much darkness, so much pain, you might wonder, Where does hope fit in? Is it even possible to feel hopeful when the world has seen such terrible things? Here's the thing. Hope isn't about forgetting what happened. It's not about pretending bad things didn't exist. Instead, hope is a quiet strength. It's the belief that even after the worst storms, the sun can rise again. It's a light we carry, even when the path ahead seems dim. Don't think about people through history. Even after huge wars and deep losses, cities were rebuilt. Communities came back together, stronger than before. This wasn't because people ignored the past or forgot their sorrows. No, it was because they chose to look forward. They held on to the idea that things could be better, that peace was possible, that life could heal. This quiet, persistent feeling, that's what hope is. It's seeing a tiny crack in a dark wall and believing light can still get through, that warmth can return. It's always been a part of the human spirit, a deep need to mend and move on. Imagine you're working on a big, hard project for school. Maybe it feels impossible, and you make a lot of mistakes. You could get frustrated, even think about giving up. But usually, you don't, right? You try again. You learn from what went wrong. You believe you can understand it next time, or do better. That belief, that push to keep trying, even when it's tough, that's a small piece of hope in your daily life. It's what keeps us all moving forward, day by day, step by step. So, when we remember these difficult parts of history, it's not just to learn about the past, it's also to fuel our hope for the future. It's a reminder that every single day, we get to make choices. We can choose kindness over cruelty, understanding over hatred. We can choose to build bridges, not walls, to offer help instead of harm. And that's why it matters so much. The future isn't set in stone. We are the ones who create it. One decision, one act of goodness, one moment of courage at a time. It's a quiet promise that, even after the deepest shadows, a new, brighter chapter can begin, written by all of us, together.